Good afternoon. I would like to call the June 9th regularly scheduled meeting to order and ask that you join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And now would you please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now we'll have Director Knight read our mission statement.
The Waterloo schools will set the standard for urban education by ensuring that every student is given the comprehensive support and diverse experiences needed to graduate with a diploma and a plan.
Thank you, Director Knight. And now the next item on our agenda is a board celebration, Waterloo School Spring Athletics. Waterloo School's athletic teams have had a very successful spring season. We're excited to celebrate the numerous student athletes and coaching staff for their accomplishments and shown in the documents. I believe we have, yep, I see Dan Huff back there. You got your team ready? All righty. While Mr. Huff is up here, he'll explain a little bit more about the
First off, number one, thanks for having us, and thanks for taking time out of a very busy schedule. You guys got big things to do, but we've had a lot of success, and we want to recognize kids. We want you to also see that while a lot of the things you deal with are really tough and whatnot, we also want to see the fruits of the labor of you guys put in and providing these opportunities for these kids, and to recognize the coaches who put in a ton of hours and the athletes themselves is really special. That being said, it is a pretty tough time of year to get people. We've got baseball and softball going on at each place. They each have games, and tonight, and some are supervising games, et cetera, and coaches are working some of those and do double duty. So we've got a good turnout of kids and coaches, and we're just going to start out with boys track over at East. You can see what they've done. Do we have any East? I don't think we have any East track, boys track people here, but they had a lot of kids who made all academic conference meet. We had 4 state qualifiers, with one placing 8th. That meant 3 of the top 8 were Waterloo schools in the 100 meter. We'll talk about the champion here in a little bit. We also had what they call ambulatory 100 meters, where we had one of our athletes, Daniel Carr, took 6th place in that, which is really special. He had a teammate with him from East, Leighton Pullen, who competed in what they call the ambulatory. Girls track with Coach Muhammad. They had a lot of, as you can see, a lot of girls who made the academic all-conference, which is really special. To put in the time and do all the stuff it takes to often be a 2 or 3 sport athlete and then maintain such high academic standards is really something to be proud of. We had plenty of placers we had the 4x100 relay champions in the Iowa Alliance Conference, which is really cool. That's a tough conference. 400 4x1 relay champions, and boys soccer with Coach Fed Cody. They had a great season this year for them, and also won the first round of the playoffs for the state tournament, for the sub-state, for the first time that anybody could remember. So good job to those folks. Moving on, we have boys tennis with West High. You can look there. I'm not going to read them all off. Girls tennis, hey, we took handful of girls to state. Had first team all conference, which is based on winning tournaments, not a vote. Ann Christensen and Sadina Bejic. And second team all conference, Janet Toe. State tournament qualifiers for the girls were double state qualifier, Anna Christensen and Sadina Bejic. Any of them there? And then we had our individual state qualifier from West, Janet Toe. I believe Janet's here. Want to stand up? Come on up, Janet. You can tell them your age, your grade, and maybe how long you've been involved with tennis and other things you might do at West High.
I just finished my sophomore year, and I've been playing tennis since I was 7, and it's my second year qualifying for state, and I just really like the sport.
Thank you, Janet. That's Coach Ben Kuchera. He does a super job for the teams. And then we have boys soccer. We have our head coach, Trent Donovan, here. He's going to talk a little bit about their season. They had a really strong season, too. They play in a really tough league. But, Coach, come on up.
Yeah, as Mr. Huff said, thank you for having us here. We are in the MVC conference, so one of the more difficult conferences to be in, typically sending a couple teams to state. This year we had, I think, 4 MVC teams go. We were 2-2 against those teams during the regular season, so right there, regular accomplishment for us. We do have our first team player here, an honorable mention player here, and then what I'm more proud of is we have 2 of our players that earned the academic award. So our GPA on our team was something that I was very, very proud of. For our senior class, I believe we had the number 7 and number 12 GPAs for the school playing soccer with us, and they're very involved with other things. So an accomplishment there as well, knowing that they're going to practice every single day and giving me their best effort during that time. So here, I'll let them stand up. Our first team all-conference players, Bo T. So Bo T's a junior. He'll be returning next year. He plays center mid for us, one of the more tougher positions on the field. And to stand out against other teams and get recognized like that is an accomplishment for him. Excited for his senior year and looking forward to see what that team can do. We did have a second team all-conference player who's not here, Aideen Baramovich. He's also a junior. So our first team and second team player are returning to the team next year. We do have an honorable mention player here, Niall Valum, who's a senior. I'll go ahead and have him stand up here. Niall's a senior playing in the back for us. Solid player, also played wing back, very versatile. His GPA is, he's one of our players that earned the academic award as well. GPA through the roof, going to Iowa State next year. Just got a great future ahead of him. So definitely a name that we're going to come back and celebrate at some point that came through the Waterloo schools, because he's bound to do great things. Sitting next to him is Javier Mendoza, who also won the academic award and is also going to Iowa State to do great things. So go ahead and stand up, Javi. So overall, our season, like I said, Mississippi Valley Conference, we ended up 8-7-2. And since my 13 years of coaching here, I've always been told if you can go over 500 in that conference, you're doing something right. So we did accomplish that goal of going over 500, and hopefully the program can continue to do so. So thank you for having us here. And on behalf of those guys right there, thank you for supporting them.
We do have Coach Kuchera here of the girls tennis from West. I'd like to have him come up and just say a few words about the team. They had a really successful year.
Hi, I apologize. I was a little late. We were preparing for co-ed state that's going to be taking place tomorrow in Marshalltown. We had Anna Christensen and Sedina Begich, who placed 6th place in state. They're going to be going along with these young gentlemen back here, Ben Young and Kanan Benedict, and we're hoping to make a deep run there. But one of the things that we've emphasized all season is that we do it the right way. The wins are great, but they've been grinding and working hard, and that's really what makes champions. So I appreciate all of your support, as well as the fantastic effort of all of our girls. So.
Next up, we did have a really successful girls soccer season as well. We had a new head coach who did a lot of good work. He wasn't able to make it this evening. We had girls golf, had a Metro Girls Conference champ, Bree Stagel, first West champion in 15 years. All Metro team, you can see those folks there, MVC All Conference. Academic and individual state qualifiers. They had Bree Stagel 13th place overall in the whole state for women's golf. Really did an outstanding job. This next coach I'm going to ask to come up to the podium is the first year girls head track coach for Waterloo West, Marshall Frazier. Talk about his ladies there, and he's also going to kind of fill in for Coach Mostek, who wasn't able to make it, called a little bit earlier this evening and just said he couldn't make it. But glad to have Coach Frazier step in and talk a little bit about the team.
Good evening. I don't like to talk, so I'm going to say it's been a great season. So in my first year, I mean, the girls have been great. We obviously, you got the stats there, but I'm blessed to be able to have this opportunity. And we actually have a few young ladies that were able to come out and represent West Track. We have Tanaya O'Brien. We have Miss Day May. And Miss Esther Shen was also all academic as well. So I'm going to turn over to one of our seniors. She's been with the team for 4 years, so I think she can speak better than I can on this.
Honestly, this season's been my favorite season by far. And throughout the season, we've overcame a lot of obstacles, and I honestly just put all my trust in Coach Frazier because I was confident that he was going to get us there. And then we did end up qualifying for DMed for state. And that was a team of me, Emma, Nakia, and Kenzie capping. And we all just put our faith in our team and each other. We put trust in each other. And yeah, it was just a good season.
Can you tell us your name, please?
Wait, what?
Can you tell us your name?
My name's Jada Smith.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also play volleyball. I've been going to Northwest Missouri State University. I'm going to play volleyball. Okay.
Congratulations. He's going to be great.
Thank you.
Wanted to shout out hey to Esther because I saw her she came to our for the Blackhawk County or the city youth council. Yes, came to help out with the board policy we'll be looking at later. So I see you, Esther. I see you.
He tried.
Like I said, Coach Coach Frazier is gonna talk a little bit about the boys track. They had a phenomenal season. I'll let Coach Frazier talk about it.
Well, as you can tell, I am not the boys coach, but this is being my first year with the team for girls. I was actually also able to witness the boys track team as well. They had a lot of kids this year. I think they had probably close to 100 kids that came out this year. Just worked hard every single day. Like Coach Mostek and his crew are very dedicated. As long as I've known him, he's taken care of my son, Benjamin, for the last 4 years, and I trust him dearly and his staff. They did a great job. It's probably the most successful year they've had this year. I believe they got like 8th place in state and broke a number of records and so on. But I'm also going to, again, turn over to a senior, my son, Mr. Benjamin Frazier.
Like my dad said, we had like a really successful year, put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this year. Coming back from last year, having like a lot of ninth place and, you know, being bumped out of finals a lot of times in a lot of races. We just came back with a different mentality, a different work ethic, and we just didn't want to let that happen again. Obviously placing in pretty much all of the races that we got into state, with me, you know, thank God, you know, winning the state title in the 100 meter. So, you know, I just have to you know, just, you know, say thank you to my coaches and my teammates who, you know, elevated each other, you know, and just worked with each other instead of, you know, competing against each other in practice. We competed with each other, trying to make each other better. And it all paid off at the end of the year. So.
Wait, Ben.
If you have any boys
what's
track
Ben
team
what's
members,
Ben doing next year though? Like, come on now.
I'll be going to Warburg for track and field and majoring in business administration.
do we have any boys track here this evening? Come on. Mr. Chase.
Thank you, Coach. I will mention that the boys team this year broke 4 state school records, 4 West High records. We had an 100-meter dash, Ben Frazier, 10.46 seconds. 400-meter hurdles, which is a tough race. Gunnar Steele, 53.16 seconds, made it to the state finals. 4x100 relay, consistent of Terrell Hoskins, Des McMurrin, Nate Klein, and Ben, 41.41 seconds. They made it to the state finals. I guess maybe that means it was in the state finals, I'm not sure. Shuttle hurdle relay broke the school record. Des McMurrin, Chase Jensen, Gunnar Steele, Michael Cunningham Jr., 57.77 seconds. And state place winners were 400 hurdles. Gunnar Steele got 3rd. High jump, Des McMurrin 8th. Shuttle hurdle relay 4th, 4x1 relay 3rd, and 100-meter dash, Ben Frazier 1st, and Des McMurrin 4th. There hasn't been a boys track team like that in many, many, many years at West High, so really proud of those guys and the things they've done, and their futures look great. Once again, thanks for having us. It's always a highlight to be able to showcase and brag about some kids who just do wonderful, kids and coaches who do wonderful things.
Hey, Coach Huff, we do have a representative from the girls' soccer team here.
Oh.
If you would like to, from West High, over on here on the.
I'm sorry. Come on up. Come on up. Sorry about that. Okay.
She's hating me right now. She's just hating me.
Hi, I'm Rachel Herbert. I was on the girls' soccer team. I'm a varsity starter for the last 4 years. I got the MVC second team, and honorable mention to Sophia Vandersee and Emra Dizdatovich. And yeah, the season was pretty tough, but it was fun. And it's kind of been tough because we've had 3 different coaches the last 4 years, so it's been kind of hard, but yeah.
Thank you. Sorry. Have we missed any? Coach Watson. He does some really cool flips and flops and spins and yeah. All right, come on up.
Hello, my name is Denaja Watson. I'm a junior, but I'll be a senior next year. And this soccer season, it was really fun for me. Started off JV and then went to varsity. Had a lot of fun, learned some new defensive moves, and can't wait for the next season.
Once again, thank you, folks. Really appreciate it.
Are you?
Before you leave, love for you all to come up here and be in a picture with our school board members. Please join us up front.
Don't let coaches get away that easy either, Emily.
You may be into, but I'll let her. One, two, three. And just keep smiling. There we go.
Good job, y'all.
Take your glasses off. All right, we'll move on with our agenda. Kind of hard to come down from celebrations like that. That's the one or few benefits of sitting in this position is being able to celebrate our students and wish them well, the seniors in their journey, and celebrate them at every chance we get. So that's always a great thing.
Seeing all of the academic all conferences was real. It's, we call them student athletes.
Yeah.
And Dan has always made that such a priority. So that's really exciting.
Yep. Yep. So that's exciting. So let's move on to our agenda. The next item on our agenda is information from individuals and delegations. This is an opportunity where those who wish to address the school board may do so. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Mrs. Arndorfer will hold up a yellow card when you have 30 seconds remaining and a red card when your time has expired. At that time, I will ask you to conclude your public remarks. Please also keep your comments respectful and constructive. We're all here with the goal of trying to help our students. Please also avoid criticizing the job performance of specific employees of the school district. Personnel matters are confidential and must be handled through the proper channels and not in a public forum. Finally, we provide this as an opportunity for public comments, but it's generally not a back and forth discussion, especially of items not on the agenda. At times, we'll try to answer with information before or after the meeting, but we have to proceed with our board meeting agenda items. With that being said, I would like to invite anyone who wishes to address the board to please come forward and start by stating your name and address. And make sure the green light is on as well.
Night. Joyce Helfer, Joyce Looney Helfer. Some of you might remember me. I remember Astor. Oh, goodness.
Probably bad.
I live at 800 Cedar Bend now, near Lincoln School, and I am a retired teacher. I was at River Hills, then Roosevelt Elementary, Logan Middle School for 16 years, where my heart stayed. I also worked 2 years at Hoover, and then I was a substitute teacher for 8 years. I'm a Waterloo parent and grandparent, and now I am the Partners in Ed coordinator for Lowell Elementary with Grace Fellowship Church. I'm excited that there will be one high school, and I have some suggestions just for you to consider. The motto I would recommend, Legends are made in Waterloo. The name would be the Waterloo Legends. Okay, the colors could be like navy blue. A friend helped me make these. Just suggestions, possibilities. And the mascot would be a robot shape, maybe. I wanted to avoid a bird, an animal. I mean, they're just all over the place. I didn't want to use colors of previous Waterloo high schools, such as orange or any red, really. No specific gender or race, a robot, okay? Why the legends? Because many graduates of Waterloo schools have gone on to be highly successful in sports and in their chosen careers. There are business owners, chefs, artists, writers, a Pulitzer Prize winner, it's amazing, educators, lawyers, realtors, medical professionals, coaches, construction workers, beauticians, bookkeepers, bankers, police officers, electricians, plumbers, firefighters, farmers, computer experts, and I'm sure you can think of others. I have not found other schools using the legends. I graduated from the University of Iowa, and I earned a master's degree from UNI, but I believe that avoiding birds and other animals would make us unique. We're already unique. Let's be even more so. Thank you for considering these suggestions.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you.
If you want to sub some more, I know how to hook you up.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board this evening?
Michael Chapman, 2761 Deer Road. Have a couple of things to bring up today. One of which involved the One High School project. In getting some of the records from the past, I found out that the school district and the board, with no consent that I could find, approved a $7.8 million contract with Envision Architecture in 2023 before any decisions had been made or it had been brought to the public or it had been voted on by the school board. I know it's generally conceived of that we ask permission before we spend giant sums of money. I know it's not necessarily required in all aspects, but as we noted with the One High School project, it did come before the public. The public signed the petitions necessary to put it on the ballot to be voted on. So there was at least that much opposition or more information needed in order to go ahead and take those steps. So why we spent $7.8 million when, as was clearly stated here time and time again, we knew that we were running into a budget crisis without getting permission of either the school board or the public in general. I find that very disconcerting. One other item, and also references the One High School project, the school district and the engineering firm involved, Modus Engineering, between the two mandated that Hawkeye Alarm and Signal be the sole source provider of several of the sub bid items on the school, which in and of itself isn't really a problem, although it does not lead to a competitive bid if you just say, hey, only this company can provide this. That being said, everyone was required to get their bids from Hawkeye Alarm and Signal. Now, the problem that I came up with as a recipient of these bids, they were different prices. Hawkeye Alarm and Signal, who this district chose, gave different bid numbers to different sub bidders. That's very underhanded. It's malicious, and it was brought to the attention of the engineering firm directly after the final bids were received. The project manager of Modus was made aware of this and said that they would be making inquiries. I've heard not hide nor hair from either the school district, the engineering firm, the prime contractor awarded the contract, nor anyone else. I figured I'd bring that to the attention of the school board because I don't know if the school board knows that either. On the third item I had to bring forward, there were no targeted small businesses included in the Waterloo High School project. Very disconcerting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board this evening? Seeing none others, we'll move on with the agenda. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Nope. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. This is an important one. And it is. Normally we have to wait to the end to get to this one. It is board policy changes first reading. The following policies have been reviewed by the district leadership team and the policy review committee and are being presented for first reading. Item number 503.09, student use of personal electronic devices. And item 503.09 R1, student use of personal electronic devices regulation. And this is for information only. Our very own Mrs. Pam Arndorfer has a little bit more information on this and what it entails.
Thank you. Yeah, so a couple things on this policy. Obviously, we did move it up to very early in the board agenda. We felt like there's going to be probably some pretty good discussion about it. And we have some administrators that are here as well to answer some questions. Sheena is back there. But the cell phone policy, the governor signed into law earlier this year that all school districts have to have a cell phone policy. Waterloo has had a cell phone policy for a number of years. What was mandated within with what Governor Reynolds signed is that cell phones are not allowed in schools during instructional time. That's the law. Cell phones are not allowed in schools during instructional time. Now, it is up to individual school districts to determine what instructional time means. So after several meetings with administrators, discussions within DLT, the board, or not the board, but those groups felt like instructional time for elementary and middle school students means the beginning of the school day to the end of the school day. So those students are not allowed to have their cell phones out during that time. It has to be put away. It is not to be out like during passing time, anything like that. For high school students, the instructional time means class time. So students can have their cell phones out during passing. They can have it out during lunchtime, but they cannot have it out during instructional class time. So those are kind of the biggest changes. And then we did go in and revise the regulation, which we added another layer of response to any kind of violation of the offense, enabling our classroom teachers, we would prefer that that's handled first in the classroom. So first offense, they're going to get a verbal warning. They're possibly going to get that cell phone taken away from them. Escalating then through the different offenses to where that phone might go to the principal's office. Ultimately, it might be sent down to the administration building, and the parents would have to sign off and get that from the student services office. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what the changes are. We did have policy review meeting on Thursday night, had a great conversation. We had students here from the Youth City Council that shared their ideas. We did have, Mr. Chapman was there as a parent community representative. We had quite a good group of policy review people there. So had a real good conversation. I would say after that conversation, and policy review members just chime in here as well. I think probably the biggest point of discussion was the response to students having cell phones out. And what's that going to look like as a classroom teacher, as an administrator? Some different suggestions were brought forward, ranging from let's have a space for them to have those put at the beginning of the classroom. What else did we talk about? We talked about
the consequence to like how long it would take from first offense to fourth offense. So like if you had a first offense first semester, does it carry for the whole year? Like we just had some questions like that.
Yep. Yeah. And the other thing we talked about too was a little bit of communication and how this is going to be played out and how our parents, our students and all that, how they're going to get the message and how that's going to go forward even to staff. So anybody else want to chime in, and then we can kind of look at the policy.
Yeah, I did just want to add that I think it was a great opportunity just for students and for parents and administrators to come together and collaboratively seek solutions on how to support. I thought it was interesting because we had the Waterloo Youth City Council who was there, and one of the students actually referenced a survey that they had given to the student body, particularly at West High, where over 93% is what she said of students said, hey, like we don't want to have our phones on us. We would rather like have the option to like have them tucked away, but it's harder for us to like actually just navigate that individually. So I thought it was interesting that she used that data, because a few times what it really came up to is the relationship that the student has with the staff member, and hey, you're not taking my phone, but like the why and the rationale. And so we really talked about just some of the things with social media and some of the just things that cause extra stress on students and the impact on their mental health. So getting to the why was important and being able to communicate that, but I think it kind of opened the gateway for us just as a community, not just the school district, but for all of us to have the conversation of just the impact of cell phones on our youth. So it was good to hear that from their lens as well.
And there was a little difference in how the responses are done at East and West as well, which was interesting to hear. One of the East students who was on the city council, she really emphasized like being proactive and having admin come in so that we don't have power struggles between our teachers and our kids. And some of the East kids or some of the West kids maybe thought that took longer at West. So that just kind of looking at how their big point was, how can we avoid the power struggle period? And we also had a teacher from West who came with the kids. We had several who are on policy review all the time, but he was talking about, he has the little shoe containers or whatever to put them on. And the more we talked about it, I like that idea. I don't know what does, when DLT was talking about all this, where were you guys with it as far as being more proactive in like having them just put the phone in when they go into a room or waiting until they pull it out? Like where is the DLT with this? Yeah.
Yeah, and we actually have Mr. Hartskamp here and Mr. O'Brien, who I know are excited to come up here and just kind of talk from an administrative standpoint, just a little bit of consensus on where they felt like the preference could be.
And can you Amy, when you get time to speak to the high school portion of it as well, there's a little difference.
I'm also going to ask you to speak to the offenses and how that is typically handled within the schools. What's a first offense, second offense, on up?
Okay. Tom Harskamp, Hoover Middle School. So Zach and I were talking, a lot of the policy is not changing a lot for middle school, but it is nice to have a little bit more backing outside of our building when we communicate with families. But so to answer your question about the consequences, the policy lays it out. Basically, the first time's a warning. Second time, we're going to confiscate it for the day. I think the third time now is we're going to make the parents come get it, and the fourth time it would go down to potentially down to the ESC. In talking with Sheena, like they'll gladly take it. Also, like I want to handle things in house, so unless it comes to that, I would rather have a parent come sit with me and have a meeting about how we can navigate and help their child be more successful. I would say walking the halls at Hoover, 95% of our kids, this is not a problem with. The 5% we navigate on a regular basis, it's going to be a concerted effort early in the year to make sure they're very clear about the expectations and following through. And so right now I've kind of left the teachers, hey, if a kid's on their phone, it was like, hey, they've earned that right. Well, that's now changing. So if I walk into a classroom, it's more of, for me, I see the kid, okay, now I'm going to be confiscating your phone and following up with the adult in charge of that room to ensure, hey, tell me more about what's going on. Did you know that they were on their phone? Did you not know?
Are you going to be able to know, though, like the kids who have type 1 diabetes and they have that out, or kids who have 504
those are the things
because
we'll
that
have
might
to
be
navigate.
hard as an admin to walk in, and if you may not know every 504 in a building of 900 kids.
Yeah. And that's
Or
the thing,
IEP.
like some of the 504s medically ones, like I know the 3 kids that would need that in their space, and being on your phone and texting your mom is not necessarily the same as being on a medical, right? So there's some things that we'll definitely navigate. Also, I'm not going to make a huge scene of it. It'll be, hey, let's step in the hallway. I'll take your phone. We'll have those conversations. And avoiding power struggles is really where it comes down to for me. Utilizing, like, we don't use lockers in 7th and 8th grade, but I'm going to assign lockers for 7th and 8th graders because they're going to say, oh, I'm not going to give you my phone. Cool. Let's go put it in your locker so it's not going to be a distraction from your classroom. They go do that. Then I go get on the phone with their parents and we have a conversation with their parents about the expectations and how we can better help them stay focused on the learning in the classroom. So,
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. All of these schools, these secondary schools, we're going to be having teachers that are, at some time, if they keep it within their room and don't need administration, are going to be suddenly responsible for a $700 to $1,000 device, and I think that there need to be some protections in place for teachers there. Chaos happens in a classroom, and maybe you put it on your desk when you took it away from the student and some other student swipes it. Like, what protections are in place to help the teachers, when it comes to this device going missing?
yeah, well, it's in the policy that, and you can maybe read that exactly word for word. The way we handle it is that if a teacher confiscates it, they call our interventionists. Interventionists come pick up the phone, bring it down, lock it in a cabinet. If it's the part that we're going to have to get better at is tracking the number of these things. And so when we do see it across, kid in second period gets his phone taken away, he gets it back at the end of second period. What happens when it happens in fifth period, right? So we're already creating systems for that. So it shows up on the dashboard of a kid. Joe Smith had his phone taken away 3 times today. Cool. Now we're making those, we're escalating that for that student.
That's tough because these kids are addicted to them.
Yeah, and that's where honestly, and like I said, ours is going to be 5% of our population. It's going to be early and often. We're going to be having these conversations and making sure all of our staff are on the same page by reminding them of the policy and reminding, hey, this is how we handle it. Also, let's not damage our relationship for this. There's people that, yeah, I'm going to be the bad guy in some of these situations. I'll go in and take care of those things or have private conversations as needed.
And I think that's the key point that from this conversations that we had, not just being a school thing. Some of us participated in the Anxious Generation book study by the Otto Schweitz Foundation, had grant fund money that we engaged in, just the impact of cell phones and social media. And so what that whole premise comes from is not just from a school standpoint, but a community, like families really understanding, hey, the impact of phones on our young minds. And so, yes, the school district and teachers, there's a lot of extra pressure on that. And that was one of the things we heard from our teachers. We had some that were like, I don't really want to be that person all the time because I want to teach, right? And so that was the conversation that we had. But then we worked with the students, and the students understanding, hey, we're not doing this to say, hey, we want to take your phone, that we want one extra thing to do, but we do care about you. We care about your mind, and we care about your social well-being. And so it does feel as though, as we talk as a district, that it is important for us to be able to regulate, but we will need family support. We will need community support and educating our families in the same manner as well. So we recognize there are probably some hurdles that we're going to need to definitely cross as we move forward with this. But I think what was encouraging from that conversation is just, you heard the student perspective, and you also heard the adults at the table saying, hey, we both want the same. And I think there's that student survey result of 93% of students not wanting. They don't want their self. They just need permission. They need some space from that. So yes, you were going to say
I think
something.
a lot of it goes into our messaging as well, which Emily is already working on a plan of communicating this once it is approved by the board, that we will be notifying parents and students and families and the community of what the policy change is, and including in some of that, this is some of the why. It's not, I mean, yes, it's a legal thing, but it's more than that. It's mental health.
Yeah, and more than their individual minds, a classroom has an environment. And when a teacher is teaching, presenting, speaking to students, and looks down and sees 6-8 kids on their phones, and the whole mood of the classroom is just, I'm not going to respond to what the teacher's saying, and other students look around and see, well, there's 6 people clearly not paying attention. It's not just an individual mind thing and a mental health thing, but it's trying to get our classroom environments back to where they should be.
I think one of the other things that we mentioned was about devices. So not only the telephones, but what they're also hooked up to. So the ear pods and the headphones, the watches. That's something that I'm not sure if we came to a conclusion about that, but that was something that was brought up. So I think that's something that, is something to think about, because, they can communicate without having the phone not out.
Well, so like in high school, do we still, okay, I know in middle school, if we have kids who need to have text done verbally, like they need to have it read to them, through the computer. And so they usually have headphones. And do we have those available in high school for the kids who need it, or?
Yeah, so Zach O'Brien, principal at Bunger Middle School. I can probably give some context to high school as well. I was at West High as an assistant principal for 6 years. So we definitely have that at the high school for kids that would need those for like 504s and IEPs.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the biggest thing that was eye-opening for me, and that I would encourage you, when I was at the high school, cell phones cause a lot of issues in schools, whether it's I'm communicating with my friends, it causes behaviors, it causes actions. So when I went to Bunger, that was something I was like, oh, I really need to get a hold on this. Middle school is totally different than high school. Kids are way less addicted to them in the middle school. I will tell you, and I think some of you have been in my building, we just don't see them a lot. I would agree with Tom. I would also encourage you, like with the new policy, it's really how you front load parents and families. So at the beginning of the year in August, I sent out a letter to all of our families, just said, hey, this is our belief in phones at Bunger. This is the policy. And I will tell you, like unequivocally 100%, I did not have one power struggle with a kid on a phone this year, or one family. Most of the families will actually thank you for it. So if we had an issue where like a teacher gave a warning and then I had to go say, hey, we need to turn your phone in, and Johnny said, I just don't feel like turning my phone in, it was simple. I would just go to the phone and call the parent, and they would come up and do everything I needed to do or talk to Johnny, and we would get the phone. So I think a lot of it is in the messaging and how you front load it to families, but I think you will be surprised by the amount of support you will get. And I would say for me, as a middle school principal transitioning from the high school, one of the nicest things as an instructional leader of a building is just how much, I guess, refreshing it is to run a building where you don't have kids just addicted and on your phones all the time. Like, it is an absolute game changer.
How often do phones end up at the ESC now?
So we track really well at Bunger. I'm sure a lot of the other schools do. I will tell you, like, it's very common for a kid to have a phone out and get a first offense. It's super common for a kid to have a phone out and get a second offense and turn it in. But once their parents have to come get it, we really like it. I'll be honest, it really stops. And kids are super creative. They will bring multiple phones. They will bring phones that don't even have cell phone service. They just want to bring them because they can connect to the school Wi-Fi and use Snapchat and that. But I will tell you, as a building principal for 3 years at Bunger, I haven't had to take any down to the ESC yet.
Yeah, Sheena.
In 3 years, I sent one.
Okay.
And that was because the parent needed to come down here.
It doesn't happen very often. This year I can think of worst case scenario. It was an elementary student. And the parent was just, they needed to see me like Tom said. So it was more or less bridging that gap between the district and home, just to reiterate some of our expectations, but it doesn't happen very often, to be completely honest.
Oh, because, you know, my brain goes right to, well, okay, if we take a phone from a kid and parent can't get there before 4:30, and then that child then is responsible for their siblings in the evening, then they don't have a phone. You know how that spirals.
Yes,
so,
yes.
But those things are just.
She was down here right away.
Okay.
Right after school to pick it up. So.
And I would say we try and use some common sense too. Like, as a building leader, I'm also a parent. I'm going to have a daughter that's going to go to school someday. So I also side with parents, like, right, you want your kid carrying their phone to school or on the bus and on the way home. So I'm never going to place or get into a power struggle with a student of like, hey, your parent can't come pick up the phone today. I'm going to now make you walk home 9 blocks without your phone. Like, I would never do that. And I would think most educational leaders are going to probably side with me, I hope, on that, and use common sense, and then figure out something later on, like, hey, you know, Berkeley had her phone out. We didn't want her to walk home without it. So now can we have her turn it in for a few days? Like, I'm going to come up with something creative like that and work with the parent. I'm not going to place a student in a bad situation.
No, thank you. Because, yeah, that was one of my worries.
So what about the consistency between the schools? Like, you know, is one thing going to be happening over here, the next over there? Like, how are we going to mandate that piece?
These guys each come every board meeting. So that I think that's the beautiful part of this policy, right? Is it's given us an opportunity to go back and look at not necessarily the policy, but enforcement. Because as several have mentioned, we've had a policy. There's always been a cell phone policy at Waterloo. That it's changed very little going into this new policy, but bringing all administrators to the table to say, hey, like, what happens on the north side of town needs to happen on the south side of town. And so can we come to consensus on what that looks like? I think the building administrators are more than willing to do that. And I think it honestly was eye-opening to hear from each building just how they were operating, which was slightly different. But I'm confident that going forward, you know, we all can commit to enforcing it in a way that is equitable.
I think the other thing that this policy does is it adds, I mean, when we're saying instructional time, there's no phones during instructional time. There's no question to that. Teachers cannot have their students pulling their phones out during instructional time.
And that
so I
was-
think that
yeah.
helps with the.
That was something that a couple of teachers brought up, that like when they're doing speeches or something, that they'll have the kids use them. So it may be us having to talk to Matt about, we're going to have classroom iPads again, you know, those kinds of things to make it ease of use. But I think those can be worked around, because the policy now reads instructional time is bell to bell in high school, correct? Yeah. So from the time, yeah. So
how are we handling, I think some of the strength and conditioning classes use apps for the kids for lifting that
may
they
have
use
to
on their
use
cell
iPads
phones.
too.
Huh?
They may have to switch to the iPads too. Like,
Well,
they
you can't necessarily use an iPad with a rack of weights.
No,
there.
I know. I don't know what it's going to
I mean,
look
it's just-
like.
Is that something that was considered, covered?
In my past district, like, we had iPads on the racks, so it is possible to do that, but I don't know what they're planning on doing with that.
I just kind of curious. I think my kids told me he got an app on the phone that they, you know, we got to determine plan for that. It might be an area to, yeah, make sure we know what that's.
Yeah, Tom, if you could like just note that down and throw that to one of us, so we don't throw it to Pam, so we don't forget that that's something we need to look at, you know.
Right.
There's lots of those little things that, you know, come up, or like with newspaper and yearbook, they'll use phones sometimes. That we have school devices that we can use. So it's just going to take thinking outside the box a little bit.
Or, well, planning before first day of class,
Yeah,
because.
yes, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
If we're going to have to switch the paths, then we need to have a plan to have those in place ahead of time. So,
we can go back to paper for that.
Zach, I appreciate you mentioning messaging like for parents and things like that, but I also messaging out to our community partners as well to have them on board with us. You know, as we go through this process, I'm thinking about my church, you know, on Sunday morning, having my pastor say, remember, there are no cell phones, you know, that kind of thing. So I just think getting others involved in this process as a community, I think will be helpful. So messaging is really important.
It's funny is that we were talking about that during the meeting. We're like, we can go to every church, we can go to the Boys and Girls Club. Like, this information can be out there everywhere. I wonder how many passing notes again we'll start to see. That'll be interesting.
Hopefully a lot.
You know, Crystal, when you talk about the community partners, one thing that we did hear from the Youth City Council, one of the students was talking about her experience as a senior leader. She was part of, I forget what do they call it at West, when the freshman Link Crew. She's on Link Crew, and she was talking about Link Crew students setting the example, but also helping to educate those younger students on the cell phone and the what and the why, and like volunteering their services to help with that.
The kids also brought up, and this one is specifically, it says student use, but the kids were like, well, what is the adult one going to look like? And, you know, Mr. Greeter, he made a good point. He's like, students and children, or students and adults, we're not at the same level, but the modeling does have to be there.
I'll let these experts talk.
We talked about that in our principal meeting too, and just like, I got a problem. My flashlight's on, that's a problem too, but like, seriously, just the bad habit of, what am I doing? I'm doom scrolling in the hallway as I'm walking from place to place. And sometimes it's my email, sometimes I'm just scrolling through whatever. And so modeling that, and then also being willing to hold myself accountable and the people I'm leading. So yeah, it's not, and that's going to be some of the stuff we're going to navigate with our staff, is like, hey, are we doing this? And not just teachers, but paras, interventionists. Sometimes we're using our phones for e-hall pass. Also, we can probably get some other devices to do that.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a collaborative effort, like what Director Matlock mentioned about, you know, the community partners and getting in front of as many people as we possibly can, especially people that have those relationships, those groundwork relationships with students and families, to buy in, even though the policy's been there for a while, or some policy has been there for a while. You know, I'm just of the mindset that we need to hit this one hard. This can't be one that, you know, we take lightly, because of the importance of it. And who, we had a conversation last year or so about the type of student that's most affected from being on cell phones, and not having that, you know, being able to navigate, utilizing a cell phone and still being able to pay attention to the curriculum and the teaching within the classroom, and even when they're home as well too. So I think it goes beyond just the classroom and the buildings. So I do like the collaborative effort and the approach to get everybody involved. So.
Or I'm just assuming, because it's just a classroom period, that seminars are included as classroom periods?
Yes.
Periods.
The kids asked, they were very concerned about that one. And I still don't think we have them on board there, because these were high achieving kids that came in, all of them were. And they're like, we take hard classes, and those of us that have seminar, that's kind of my downtime. Because, you know, we were talking about, there is a lot of instruction that happens, kids during seminar, people work with their instructors, but some people just have to use it as a time to like turn your brain off. But if we make seminar exempt, then all of a sudden seminar isn't an instructional time for those that need it to be.
Tell them bring a real book. Read a real book.
I tell my kids
Or Chromebook.
I tell my kids to study during time, but I mean, I think it is important that we, make it clear that that there's no few misinterpretations. Like the classroom point being, classroom period does include seminar. It does include teaching assistant positions. When those time periods where, well, I'm not in class, I'm a TA. Well, does that technically is listed as class? But make sure there's no, disagreements on because the policy wasn't clear or what the understanding was there.
When PE is outside, it's still PE,
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you to Policy Review for working on this. That was just the first reading. That was for information only.
Did we not are we not doing first reading on the anti-bullying one? Or are we waiting on that one?
That's a reg. That was a
That was
regulation.
just a reg. Yep. Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Good question. All right. And that was just for information only. So we'll continue with our agenda. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda consists of 12 items. Item 1, approval of minutes of the May 12th, 2025 regular board meeting and May 14th, 2025 special board meeting. Item 2, personnel appointments and adjustments. Item 3, bills due and payable and bills paid between board meetings. Item 4, West High Drum Major Camp in Rockford, Illinois. Item 5, the 28E Waterloo Career Center WCC 28E agreements. Item 6, Joint Education Service Agreement between Hawkeye Community College and Waterloo Community School District. Item 7, Contract with Central Rivers AEA for transfer of state funding. Item 8, Driver's Education Contract with Hawkeye Community College. Item 9, Joint Project Agreement with City of Waterloo. Item 10, Iowa Association of School Boards 2025-26 membership dues. Item 11, Iowa School Finance Information Services 2025-2026 subscription fee. And item 12, request for proposal RFP for school bus bids. That's probably the longest that I've seen
Those again.
for consent agenda. Are there any items that board members want to see removed?
4.
6.
6.
2,
2. Item 2.
8, and 12.
12. And are there any else? I'll remove item 5. There's an amendment. You wanted to go with 12? Keep them even? Are there any else? Going once? Item 2, item 4, item 5, item 6, item 8, and item 12. No others? Okay. All right. Can I get a motion to put items 1, 3, 7, 9, 10, and 11 on the table?
Second.
All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carried. That brings us to item 2. Personnel appointments and adjustments. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve the personnel items as listed.
So moved.
Second.
And I believe Director Mills.
Did
Item
we
2.
vote yes on the? Did we vote?
We got a first and first and second, so it's opening up for questions now or comments.
No, she's asking, did we vote on?
Who moved in second? Oh, they did.
Yeah, we did.
They did.
It was.
We did.
We did.
And we
Yeah.
we moved in second. I asked for the
Yep.
No, we haven't voted. It's up for discussion now, and then we'll vote after this discussion. I need to slow down a little bit?
Someone over there did too. I don't. Okay.
Okay, now we're ready for conversation.
So, I had a couple questions. One, under change of assignments, we have the new paraeducator library assistant positions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them hired. How many in total are we going to have?
8.
8. So 8 of the assistants, right? And then 4 librarians. And that's covering, though, how many buildings? 11, 12, 13, 14, 15?
Yep.
So which buildings aren't going to have somebody in them every day? I'm confused. I'm sorry. I mean, I thought the library assistant was supposed to be in the building every day so that the other person, the 4 were going to travel. Am I not understanding it correctly?
That's the right idea, is that there would be
Okay.
a librarian and 2 assistants covering each of the 4 regions. I don't have it in front of me. Jen would really be the person I'd have to ask to say, hey, how are we breaking it down? She's been working with the building saying, what's your schedule going to look like and how we're going to staff each building. Some buildings also have the assistant. They may have somebody else that's going to help cover part of the day if the assistants are traveling to other buildings, because 3 of the areas have 3 buildings. 1 has 4 buildings. That's probably the area where we might ask somebody in the building to help out a little bit too. Stacy, that's a great question. I don't know that I can answer it to the level that you are asking at the moment.
Okay. I'll get some more, because I must have misunderstood. I thought that there would be a library assistant in every building so that there'd be somebody in every building all the time.
The libraries will remain open all the time.
There just may not be somebody in there all the time. Right.
That's between the staffing, between the paras, the librarian, and the building. They will be open all the time, yes.
And I think I would add, I just met with Tina Rostal and Janice, who's awesome at Carver, just to work through some of those logistics. Because, for instance, at Bunger, I can tell you that they have a gen ed para that Zach O'Brien has assigned full time. He's getting creative within the staff to help support if there's any off time. So some of the principals are actually looking at the current scheduling with some of their gen ed paras to help support when there's somebody not in there, to ensure that the library stays open at all times. So there's access for all. So I know some of them are working through that a little bit individually.
So there'll be 3 more of this position that gets hired, right?
Yep. So Jen had the interviews, I believe, a week and a half ago.
Okay.
And there were people within the district. They're current employees that got those positions.
Yeah.
Just not all of those got processed in time to get on this board agenda.
Oh, so they are all filled out.
I believe they're all filled already.
Okay.
They're just not on this board agenda based on when they accepted the offers.
Okay.
Stacy, I just reshared the library reduction plan.
Okay.
And I'm just looking at the key points I'm looking at is, remember, there's 4 regions.
Yes.
3 of the regions have 4 schools. 1 of the regions has 3 schools.
Yep.
Each region will have 1 media specialist and 2 paras per region. So there's 3 staff members that will serve 4 buildings in 3 of the regions, and then 3 staff members that serve 3 buildings in 1 region.
Okay.
In addition, it says, along with other support staff trained and scheduled to provide read alouds, lessons, check-in, check-out time. So it should be, I mean, I'm just doing the quick math. I mean, that's 75% coverage, depending on how they do it. Not to mention the additional way that we're getting creative in South buildings to cover those.
Is library not going to be an exploratory anymore then, correct? Right? It is or not? Like, when teachers go in, are they just going to go in by themselves? I guess this is way harder than just having Sam answer for HR related, but
yeah, Jen could certainly get you all these answers. I'm feeling pretty confident that it's not a class, but I guess I don't know.
It's not going to be an exploratory as it has been in the past, but the library will be open all day for teachers to use that space to have access to the materials. And that is something that Jen has been working on with the principals. I don't want to speak for her because I don't want to give you wrong information, but
Right.
we can get that for you.
yeah, I'd appreciate that. And then I had a question under the right where it says change of assignments for administrative. I don't know if we want to pull that section to be voted on by itself, which is kind of what I would like to do. Otherwise, if everyone would just like to leave it on and vote with it separately, it's kind of up to what the other board members are wanting to do. For me, it's the change in salaries for a couple different positions that are listed under the administrative portion of change of assignments.
I think with the multiple, I would prefer that we just vote
On the whole
thing.
the whole personnel.
Yep, the whole personnel.
Okay. Is that, I mean, I can, Lyle, how do I do it if I wanted to just ask to have that and see what everyone else wants? I don't know.
That would have needed to be done, is my understanding, prior to putting this motion on the table. That's the what I got from the attorney the last time we talked about it.
Okay.
That before you put the original motion on it, the question would have been divided.
So would it be divided by an amendment or?
And
friendly
just
amendment.
It would have,
friendly
yes.
amendment whole?
No, as I understand from the attorney, is that the question needs to be divided. So right now you have a motion on the table that has to be voted on.
Yeah.
We would have to, the question needed to be divided before this was brought up.
Okay.
That makes sense? Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Sorry. So when I had sent the information saying that that's what I wanted to do, I guess no one told me that that's how I needed to do it. So I didn't know ahead of time. But
So would that have to, in the case that it ever comes up again, would it be voted on to, so it wouldn't just be voted on for the items, it would be voted on
Right,
to do it?
you vote to divide the question
Okay,
and then vote on the two separate items.
gotcha.
Logically, if they have no proposal to begin with, historically, put it on the table, then you can divide what's on the table.
It would be. What, so what you're saying allows it can be moved to divide after, it has to be put on the table and then you can move to divide it during, what it would have to be, voted on to divide it?
yes.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
if no one else wanted to divide it but me, then it would just die there.
Okay.
And then I would just vote on the entire personnel as it's presented. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what I'm, anyway. So, I mean, I can just discuss why I'm talking about this now, or I can move to divide that section out.
Yeah, if you want to talk about that separately, then you'll need to divide the question.
Okay. Can I do that?
Mm-hmm. So you just make a motion to divide the question that you want to divide the question that you want to pull.
So I'd like to move to divide the question to remove the section under change of assignments that are administrative.
Move it to part A and
Part- Okay, so part A is that section that I just talked about, the administrative section under change of assignments, and part B is everything else, correct? Okay. So I move for that. Yep, okay.
Now, does that
And then
consider
you
a
need to
roll
vote.
call vote, or can we?
No, you can just.
No roll
vote.
call?
No.
Okay. All those in favor of separating Part A, the change of assignments, administrative, and Part B, the rest of the personnel appointments and adjustments, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carried.
Motion does not carry. It's denied. There were 4, 3 aye, 4 nay.
No, it was 5-2. Right.
Motion was
Right.
2 to-
Oh, yeah.
Motion
I'm
was
sorry.
2
I said the
divide.
wrong terminology. My apologies. I said the wrong terminology. Yes. Yes. Correct.
So since it's all
The motion-
together, I can
motion
just,
denied.
I'll
Yes.
just discuss it
My apologies.
with everything else then. So the fact that we have positions that are changing the names of the position, I think is important. However, I do not feel that this is a time when it is in the best interest of the district to be changing salaries as drastically as the proposed salaries are being changed. So together it would be what, $35,000 difference in just 2 of the positions changing. That because they're going from one position, they're being changed to a different title. So that's why I'm bringing that up in the first place. Okay.
In which I completely understand where Director Mills is coming from with the amount of money and the timing. I feel like timing has been off for a lot of things this year.
Yes, ma'am.
But I do know that we stated, I don't know when it was,
I have it.
about a year ago or so, where this position would go into effect in July of 2025. And when you have an interim for a position, you must have a director. So I'm hoping that these items were already budgeted. And so this is really not, for me, it's not a question because it was already stated that this is what we're going to do in July of 2025. And once you have an interim, you must have a director at some point, because I don't think any business would keep an interim for more than a year. That's,
Right. One of them is being changed from the interim. The other is just a complete title change.
which was stated publicly in January of 2024.
Hold on.
If I have that correct.
Yep, that was what I handed you earlier.
Hold on. I need to pull that up.
Should be in the packet that I.
Yeah, I'm looking. Hold on.
So while you're doing that,
They're on my
I'll
head,
speak a little
sorry.
bit while you're looking at that.
Yes.
I agree. I completely agree. I've stated it in the past numerous times in the past 2 years. Perception is reality, and we're in a time where, as a board, we have to look at, being fiscally responsible. We have to look at the finances tied to the district. But I did go back, and I remember the conversation, and because it was actually started, a conversation that I had with Dr. Smith about the what the top positions look like: superintendent, associate superintendent, head of HR. When we were discussing the one school, and my concern was that we didn't have a number 2 at the time. So we had that conversation, and I'll be honest, I'll be completely transparent. What I said was specifically in regards to the one high school, I said, the life expectancy of a superintendent is 3 to 5 years. And normally, in normal cases, that number two is either exalted to the superintendent's seat, or they're that transition between the previous superintendent and the new superintendent. At the time, we didn't have that, for different reasons. We didn't have that number two. So the conversation came up, we need to put ourselves in place in the case that there is a superintendency change. And I understood that, just being on the board for these 6 years. What that looked like, we didn't know. I do think that we have somebody in our district that is capable, and has shown that they're capable.
I agree.
So-
This has nothing to do with the personnel that are involved in this position. And I don't. It's very
know.
hard to separate the two sitting here. Sorry, because that's like not. That's not what I'm talking about at all.
Yep,
And I'm not
yep.
talking about what someone deserves either.
Yep. And I met with you earlier, and I said I completely understand, and I'm with you. So, doing my due diligence, I requested some information, and I did, and I received it, and I received it in enough time to go over it. And I couldn't justify being comfortable with those raises for those individuals, any individual, and we're talking about cost savings, and it put us in a position to either be close to what we were in 23, 24, or 24, 25. Anything similar to that wouldn't have been a cost savings. We're cutting positions, but we're still talking about this amount of money. And I asked for that information. Thank you, Sam, for giving me that information. And it's quite a bit. It's more than I thought we were saving, even with these positions being added and the others that are along that as well. We're not just talking about those two positions. We're talking about a few, but just how I think in my mindset, I'm a bottom line person. I grew up in poverty, so I understand when we start talking about finances and money, anything over a certain amount raises concern for the people that I know and associate with. So I do appreciate that we already had this in place, and I can go back and look at it, and it spells it out specifically.
Part you
Which
talking about the change in like when the changes in title were going to happen.
Yes.
But were there numbers attached to those from the beginning?
Well, that position carries a certain amount of money.
Right.
the past.
But it's
And
been
it's
different at different times.
Yep. And it's, not without getting specific, it's lower than what if we would have had a consistent person in that position, it would have been higher.
Right.
Probably by about 25, so I'm trying not to get too specific. But
Stacy, I'm doing a search through my email.
Okay.
Appreciate Astor bringing up the press release that laid out the next steps.
Yeah.
There was an email sent to the board back on May 8th, 2023.
Okay.
In which I laid out like the vision for our next steps with district leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And in that email, you can reference it. I referenced what the former associate superintendent was making,
Mm-hmm.
and then what my proposed salary range was.
Okay. Hold
So
on.
that was laid out along with a couple other proposals
Okay.
too. So that was just in response to, was there a number ever attached? There was back in May 8th, 2023. I can forward that to you too.
Yes, please. So, but since May of 2023, we've had to now do drastic cuts. This kind of money could almost pay for another family support worker. So I'm just being diligent in looking at numbers. That's all. Did you forward it? I'm sorry.
I just forwarded it. Yep.
And the optics are bad. It's not a good time. But people do change positions.
Right.
And in the past world I lived in, you almost always got a phone. But you didn't necessarily, well, you didn't really, it was bumped into a range. Okay. And so my problem, the way our practice at the moment, is more of a structural problem, because if we're locked in to give every administrator the same percentage raise every year, then this decision lasts forever. There isn't that range where you have the ability on a promotion to put them in that range, and then as job performance dictates, have a higher percentage rate to gradually bring them up to midpoint or above midpoint. But if you're locked into saying, okay, everybody's gonna get 3% raise, then this becomes a really different decision. See what I'm saying? And,
Yes, I do.
You know, but that's good business here. But
I guess I'm looking at it from the standpoint of this is of a need of the district. It was well stated of the certain positions and going from an interim to director. Like Crystal mentioned, I hope that was in the budget of itself. So with that, out of principle, and are the optics bad? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But this is something that, when we go back in time, this was a need of this district. Now it's here present. It's involving compensation. And reluctantly, we need to be about principle because this is a need of the district. We cannot have an interim director go on and on and on. And as Pastor stated, we needed to make sure we had a number two. If those discussions didn't happen, I'm right with you. I'm right with you. If those discussions did not happen and that wasn't communicated, I am with you. But since they did happen, this is something that, you know, we have to stand on. This is for the district to be able to move forward. There's a lot of things, a lot of moving pieces, and this is one of the moving pieces that was stated over a year ago. So I'm just looking at it from that lens. I know there's a bunch of other lenses to look at this situation, but you know, we as a board need to be about principle. We can't say something a year ago and then have someone go through time, sweat, studying and everything and say, oops, no. So I think we need to move forward on this.
I appreciate this information.
Yeah.
The information sheet that they're referencing, just full transparency, we were asked to pull up my calculator real quick. We were asked to look at the salaries of our district leadership employees this year versus what is expected for next year, based on those budget cuts. The cuts that we've made, and we've went in depth about the cuts we've made, and the year before as well, is we from this year to next year we've saved, our estimates are $564,000 from last year to or from this year to next year. So that, and again, you can look at a couple different, I mean, there's other numbers too, but over $500,000 has been cut from the budget from the district administration, including these two proposed salary adjustments. So I understand optics, you know, we got a great conversation here. Totally understand optics aren't great right now. Also, I just encourage you, you know, we pulled a lot of data across the state too. Waterloo, in my opinion, is behind in terms of our administrative salaries.
But we're also extraordinarily property poor compared to the rest of the state. We just are.
There's a lot of ways to look at it, absolutely. And we've also looked at who was in these positions before. The proposed salaries for the two employees that we're talking about are about $20,000 less than what people were making in those positions previously. So no matter how much we've looked at it, I feel like it's the right number. And I appreciate the dialogue. We're doing our best, and we've even found some other cost savings across the district that we're tracking that I'm excited to share with you guys at some point. JT's got a document that's showing additional cost savings on top of the $11 million that we're saving. And so there's a lot going on in the district in terms of cost savings, but I do feel good about the proposed salaries that we're discussing.
Thanks everybody for the discussion. And again, this was the most uncomfortable I've felt up here in a very long time. So
We're in uncomfortable seats. I can attest to that. Are there any more questions? All right, let's ready for a vote. All those in favor of approving the superintendent's recommendation, state aye.
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 Abstain.
Yep. Any opposed?
aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carried. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that again. and I just couldn't understand what I was doing at the time. So pardon me. Okay. So that brings us to the next item on our agenda, on our consent agenda, item 4. Somebody got it up. I got it. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve travel for West High's drum majors to travel to Rockford, Illinois to attend the drum major camp from June 28th through July 1st, 2025. And we have Jason here that can give us a little bit more information about this.
Hi, my name is Jason Dobbs. I'm the band director at West High. So thank you for considering this. Since it's an out of state, we had to come and ask for permission for this. So we have 3 new drum majors that have not been in that position before. They need to get them trained up. This is a different one than we've gone to the last couple of years. Based on the dates that our students were available, they were not able to go to that one. This one looks like it offers a lot of the same really good instruction as far as conducting techniques, rehearsal techniques, leadership, the role of the drum major, how they put that into effect there, field commands, things like that. Another neat thing is it's put on by the Phantom Regiment, which is one of the top drum and bugle corps in the world, and they're going to have a chance to see some of these principles in action in that corps and actually rub elbows with the drum majors of that corps and get some hands-on experience with them too. So kind of excited to see how that looks, and it's one thing to kind of get the theories there and then go out and do it, but to see it put in effect with a drum corps like that, it's going to be a neat thing.
And when these 3 students go and do this leadership camp, the leadership doesn't just stay with them, right? They sort of spread it throughout the section leaders and other leadership within the leaders in the band, right?
Right. Yep. To have those and see what their role would be as far as, with the other section leaders in the band, with the director, how they interact with the student membership there. So hopefully that will permeate throughout the whole group as well. So meals are included in this. Housing is included in this, other supervision, along with some other things there too. So it looks like a good opportunity for our students.
You have 3 all new ones.
All new ones, yes.
That's a rough go. Are they all in the same grade?
We do have 2 seniors and 1 junior.
Okay, good. Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Any more comments? Yep, thank you.
It'd be great when you guys come back if you bring the 3 to tell us what you guys did. We'd love it.
Any more comments, questions? All those in favor of approving the superintendent's recommendation, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carried. Good luck, have fun.
Thank you. Sorry about the wait.
That brings us to the next item on our agenda. On the consent agenda, item 5, the 28E Waterloo Career Center WCC 28 agreements. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve the 28E agreements between the Waterloo Schools, Waterloo Career Center, and the following school districts for WCC programming as presented.
So moved.
It's on there. Wait. Oh, I'll name the schools.
Oh, go.
Dyke New Hartford, East Buchanan, Gladbrook Rhinebeck, Janesville, and Union.
So moved.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's listed on there, so we amended it, or we pulled it to add Dyke New Hartford, and it's already listed on there.
I think they had
So
been
it
in the
was,
past.
yeah, it was added after the initial board agenda was distributed. So
Yeah.
we just added Dyke New Hartford this morning.
Yep. And we also added, I can be here for Amy, work-based learning. So some of those non-Waterloo schools will have to contract to engage in internships through the Waterloo Career Center. So we want to make sure we have that joint agreement. We do have some non-Waterloo kids interested in and probably anticipating fall or spring internships with us. So that was also added.
When you say contract, what is that?
This joint contract agreement, the superintendents had to agree. We added work-based learning. So when the kids are doing internships or apprenticeships or pre-apprenticeships, that will recover that $450 cost for them to engage in work-based learning.
That's what I want.
was
That's what I
yeah.
want you to say.
Yeah, I don't think any of these are new to 2080s. Remember the fall.
East Buchanan is a new one.
Is
Is a new 2080. Not. Yes, East Buchanan is brand new.
And that was because we have a superintendent
Yes.
who is a former Waterloo administrator, and he was interested in partnering. Is it Corey? Corey Kelchum? Mm-hmm.
So how many 2080s do we have?
He came to the board, I think it was maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago. I can look that up. I think it's 8 or 9 with non-Waterloo partners. I just
I can
sent
let
out
you
the
know
bills.
the list tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm going to support this, but by next year, I certainly would like to see a cost of service analysis.
Yeah, I agree with you, Lyle. I talked to Amy Meehy about that today, and I said we need to look at all of it, right? We have to look at FTE, we
Not
have to
that
look at
that's
facilities. We're going to adjust
The
it.
be all end all, but
It needs
we
to
ought to at
increase.
least know what our cost of service is
Yep,
compared to the tuition we're charging.
I agree. We'll analyze that one probably this summer. Now, remember too, I don't know if you all know that, the non-Waterloo partner does pay Hawkeye for the class. We don't pay for the class when it's a non-Waterloo. We pay the 28E 450 for the FTE of the staff, facilities. They cover the busing. We don't pay for busing, materials, textbooks, experience. But we don't pay for the concurrent bill. The non-Waterloo partner pays for that because they get the supplemental weighting.
But our cost of service includes our instructional costs.
Yes, it does. And our facilities and our curriculum. Yes.
All right, any more questions, comments? All those in favor of approving the superintendent's recommendation, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carried. Thanks, Sharice, for stepping in.
Yeah. I know, right? I was Amy's voice and I'm the one that's losing my voice.
That brings us to the next item on our agenda, on our consent agenda. Item 6. It's the joint education service agreement between Hawkeye Community College and Waterloo Community School District. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve the joint education service agreement for the summer 2025 and fall 2025-26 school year.
So moved. I had a couple questions. I should have they didn't come to me ahead of time, or I would have asked you in advance. So I'm trying not to put you too much on the spot. So, summer college credit program. I see a couple. So, classes if we're offering, but I assume they're being offering at, or is offered at Hawkeye or through virtual. How are these offered?
They vary. So the summer classes, we don't pay for any of that. That is a grant that Hawkeye has every summer. We just agree. We have a partnership with them to agree to put it on our students' transcripts for dual enrollment. So
Okay.
it's through Hawkeye. It's at Hawkeye locations. Some of those are virtual or online courses, and some of them are face-to-face.
Are these the only, like, we don't look at like comp on computer history over summer, or they just don't offer them in the summer?
Every year they Hawkeye looks through, they do an analysis of courses that they're going to be offering through this grant, and it's usually tied to some of those low numbers within industry, and that's where they start to look at which ones they're going to have from year to year. So comp 1, comp 2, those usually aren't offered in the summer.
On the fall and spring semester courses, all these listed are concurrent courses?
Yes, all those, the 49 are concurrent.
Okay.
And that's what,
So
all through Hawkeye.
How many courses do we have that are not concurrent?
Outside, you mean as far as how many classes do we offer as a whole for high school offerings in the program of studies?
At the Career Center?
Oh, at the WCC? I'll have to check with Amy on that, but I believe we have, most of them right now are of those, by the way, of those 49, 42 of those, 43 of those are at the Career Center, and then we have 6 at East and West high schools. So they have 46, and of those, I'll double check with Amy in the morning and have her send it out. There might be another 15. I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head. Most of them are concurrent.
My concern is I'm not sure. I think we've lost some fidelity to the mission of the Career Center. At one time, they were all concurrent.
Not all of them. They haven't all been concurrent. There was a push to get them to be more concurrent, and then we started to look at, do they need to be concurrent? So that, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. But not every kid wants to take a college class.
That's
at the
my
Career
issue.
Center.
I submit they
Yeah.
do need to be concurrent.
All of them need to be concurrent.
All of them.
We could
Well,
have
the
a
trade
separate
ones aren't, right?
conversation about that.
Some of the
Well, they
trade ones
can't-
aren't
if,
concurrent.
if they can be concurrent, they ought to be, because these students need to have some sort of certificate and some sort of college credit when they walk the stage. If we back away from that, it's just a shop class.
No, because we have work-based learning. So now what they're doing is they're getting industry recognized credentials. You don't have to be concurrent to get IRCs, and then they can go into the workforce and they can have higher pay. So the work-based learning part of concurrent offerings is also giving opportunities to the 55% of our kids who don't want to go to college. They want to go into the workforce. They can still get an industry recognized credential or an IRC, and they can still go into the workforce making more money without having to take the route of a 2-year or 4-year. So the mission is diploma and a plan. Some of our kids want to go on for a 2-year. Some of our kids want to do a degree in 3. Some of them want to go on to a 4-year. And many of our kids are not taking college classes and don't want to. So that's why we bring in work-based learning and a tight pathway and get those IRCs and get those kids into the workforce making more than if they didn't have that opportunity.
I just think a lot of kids don't know whether they want to go to Hawkeye or somewhere else after this. And if they've got credits, they may be more inclined, incentivized to do that.
Are some of the classes also building towards classes that do give credit? Aren't there a couple at the Career Center that even if they don't have a certification, they're ones that build to a concurrent course?
You mean within each pathway?
Yeah.
Well, each pathway has, some of them, not all, some of the CTE classes don't have concurrent. They're not all concurrent. The culinary is not concurrent.
Yeah.
So as far as, to the argument of some of the kids who don't know, we actually have, I can pull the numbers. I believe we have 62 kids who are on academic probation because they weren't ready to take concurrent classes. So that's one more barrier, that if they do decide to take classes at Hawkeye, they already are put on academic hold. So we also have to look at every single student that we have and their pathway opportunity. Now, I'm going to send out letters to those 62 kids and let them know if they meet with Hawkeye and come up with a plan, they're going to lift that hold on their Hawkeye account. But not every kid wants to take a Hawkeye class or needs to. But if we create a work-based learning culture and climate where they can get a certification and go into the workforce, we're going to double down on every kid in our district, not just 45%.
Whose barrier is it?
Whose barrier is it?
Yeah.
Pathways that we need to build. Kids not knowing that they're Hawkeye classes, fully knowing what that means to take a college class when you're in high school.
The barrier for students to get into a concurrent class.
CTE, there aren't barriers. Liberal arts, there are assessments that they have to meet. Those are the liberal arts courses that you can see are asterisked in this document. 18 of those 49 are liberal arts. The other ones are CTE, and those are more open access, but we do have to make sure that kids are prepared per ISAS proficiency, or Hawkeye also has AccuPlacer, ALEX assessment requirements. Because what we don't want to say is you're not meeting grade level standards, but we're going to put you in a college class, and we don't want to put them in a situation where it's too far above their preparedness. But trust me when I say we work real hard on secondary curriculum, and we're seeing increases in achievement to get our kids up to grade levels so they can optimize their pathway. But not all of our kids want to go on to a 2 or 4, but we should still be building opportunities through work-based learning and industry recognized credentials to put them in a position where they can make a really good living and build back our community.
I think there is. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and we can do a separate meeting if you want to about this. I think this is a lot
This
of
has been
information.
a whole year conversation. I've been in probably 6 or 7 different
Yeah.
meetings with Cherise,
Right,
with
right.
Jeff, with Amy, with Josh. It's a huge philosophical, not just in Waterloo, but
Right.
across the state. Is there are a few courses that are not concurrent. We've been talking about giving kids more access to getting. We got competing priorities right now, right? In terms of we're hearing that we want to get more kids in classes. We want to get more kids. We want to get more expo kids in some of these courses, and there are some barriers there for getting some of those kids into. So we've looked at maybe exploring a few that are non-concurrent.
Right.
To make sure that we can get more kids access. So again, I'd love to spend more time talking with you
Yeah,
about
we
this.
could do
Maybe
it
not right
separate.
now when I got
Yeah.
the full team here, not just
Absolutely.
Sharice defending the programs there. So
Yeah.
but we'd love to have that. I hear you loud and clear. We'd love to have that conversation.
So I had I had a visit out to the Career Center this year just as part of my rotation. And it was a little bit eye-opening because I was under the impression at the time we had more concurrent than we did. However, it gave me, instead of, it gave me some food for thought in that. And I kind of shared with a couple of people this. I got thinking about, okay, what's the solution here on, and there's concurrent and non-concurrent. And obviously I've learned there's some barriers about co-seating concurrent and non-concurrent
Well,
students.
you
and say-
can't.
You can't, right.
You can't.
But it looked like there may be some ideas how you could offer the same instruction and kind of differentiate with the concurrent to the non-concurrent course and maybe do some workarounds so we might be able to offer the best of both worlds to the kids who want it and to the kids not, at the same time, not duplicating classes or adding.
Right.
So
Yeah, and we can talk more about that.
yeah,
We also
I shared. I think
Yeah.
I shared it with Amy, but I'm not sure.
We want to make sure we're
Yeah.
not duplicating. If we already have a high school equivalent for that experience,
Yeah.
like an accounting class, then they can take that class and still be part of a pathway in that program.
I guess I question anybody's ability to judge that this student is going to be successful in a non-concurrent class and not successful in a concurrent class. So that's what you're doing.
Say that again.
If you're saying we don't want to put these kids in a concurrent class where they're not going to be successful, you don't know that. You don't know. I mean, I'm hearing you say it's a watered down class.
No, I'm not
So-
saying that. I'm not saying that.
Then
Well, we can-
why is there a barrier to be put into a concurrent class.
What I'm saying, it's not a barrier, it's open access. Not every kid wants to take a concurrent class, but wants to go into the workforce and be prepared. That's why work-based learning is also part of the Waterloo Schools opportunities, where we can get a kid an internship and an industry recognized credential and get them into the workforce doing something they don't all want to go on to a community college or a
So we're
four-year.
not telling any kid that your scores aren't high enough to go into a concurrent class.
Of the 18 of the 49, this is not a Waterloo Schools. This is senior year plus guidance for the state of Iowa. So I follow the senior year plus guidance to offer college courses. It's required by the state of Iowa. If we are going to offer college classes, we have to meet certain requirements to ensure that students are prepared. One of those is, for those 18, that they do have to be proficient on ISASP. Now, a month and a half ago, I came here and also, and you all passed it, I came up with alternative measures that kids could use if their ISASP scores weren't proficient. So we're not trying to create barriers. What the state of Iowa is saying is ensure that kids are prepared, build a pathway so they're aware of what it means to take college classes in high school.
So those scores
Yeah.
apply to every course?
No, only the liberal arts courses. So of the 49 that you're
So the
agreeing
rest of
to,
them, there should be no kid told you don't have a high enough score to get in that class.
only the 18 that are liberal arts, we have to follow senior plus guidance for achievement scores.
Hold on,
That's
Sharice.
not
This
any different.
this sounds like a work session.
It is a work session.
Well,
It sounds like a work session.
It's good though.
One more, two more. One.
Two more.
All right, make them quick.
The comment is that this isn't much different than what Hawkeye would do herself. If you come in and you have to take a placement test, if your English score is high enough, you won't go to Comp 1.
Right.
You'll take a non-credit class
Yes,
to get you
yes.
ready, or math. So
Yes.
this, what we're doing is no different than what they would do if they went straight to community college. And
Well, and they have the AccuPlacer score that they have to meet for Comp 1 and Comp 2.
exactly. So
And
this is
we
not
have-
any different from
it's
that.
not.
And my only other question was, Louise, we didn't have enough kids for the other history course post 1877.
Since is duplicated. We have U.S. History 2, yes, at both East and West high schools.
Okay, I only see two 1877. We don't got from.
U.S. History since 1877 is a duplicated course. It's too similar to the content of our actual U.S. History course. And if you have duplication, the state of Iowa has you monitor in senior year plus. Why would you have a college course if you already have high school course with the content? So that one was looked at, analyzed, and 90% of the content was the same. So we have U.S. History 2, but U.S. History since is a duplicated course, so that was removed.
So, but we don't have a concurrent offering for that then. We just
U.S.
have a high
History,
school
right,
course.
correct, because it's graduation requirement course.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll keep my comments brief. Very.
okay.
Because this has been a conversation. So we'll reach out. It sounds like we need to do some more digging and some more conversations
Yes.
about this. Because I got some concerns too.
Yeah. No, I'd love to have a work session. It's something I'm very proud and passionate about. And we want
I don't know if
opportunities
you
for our
want to hear
kids.
my. I don't know if you want to hear my spiel. So
You know what I think
it'll take a while.
You know what I am going to do, though? I have shared it with the board in the past. It's good for you to know what the senior year plus document is that we're required to follow to offer college courses in high school. They can't just make it randomized. There are requirements that we do follow. And when I come here and I provide you with alternative assessments to meet some of those requirements outside of ISAS proficiency for liberal arts, that's what I brought to the board a month and a half ago that you approved. So I work really hard to ensure that we're giving kids a lot of different opportunities.
And I appreciated that one because
Yeah.
I didn't know.
I'll send it.
I did not know enough about
Please.
Senior Plus
Yeah.
until you
Please.
brought that stuff
Yeah,
last time.
That's not a Sharice, that's a
All
state of Iowa.
So yes, I think the more that we can all know about it, the better.
Yeah.
So-
Yep.
I agree.
And we should do that work session at the Career Center. Just saying.
And bring in the WCC team. I really think this is, a bigger group that.
Well,
that
let's
we
bring
can
in some
meet.
food too.
And we'll
All
bring
right,
food. I'll bring food.
All right. Anything else? Okay. All those in favor of approving the superintendent's recommendation, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carried. Thank you, Sharice, for
Thanks,
stepping
Lord.
in and
Appreciate you.
lost where I'm at. I got you. Yep. All right. That brings us to item 8 on the consent agenda. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve the contract for services between Hawkeye Community College and the Waterloo Community School District to provide driver education to students from July 1, 2025 through through June 30, 2026.
Second.
And
That was me.
okay. Stacy.
So I wasn't on the board when the decision was made to take it out of the high schools. Can someone kind of walk me through why that decision was made? Lyle and Jesse were here. So
I wasn't here. I think I was.
it says it started 2018, 2019. Because Clayton did it. So I know that like when Clay started at West, we still had driver's ed in-house.
I didn't think much about it because I didn't have a kid driving yet. Sorry.
I don't recall.
That was Hawkeye providing it. I think there was a group before Hawkeye.
But they were providing it in the schools, correct?
It was a cost saving. It was initiated the last time the district was in dire straits financially as a cost savings item.
Is it a lot more expensive to try to run a program yourself than to have it farmed out?
At the time, yes, and probably still is.
Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, teachers
Right.
cost more than the subcontractors that teach driver training.
Okay.
Now, the argument at the time was, well, it's not the same. This is a safety issue. So kids need to know
I still wrote that down. Yeah.
as much, as much as possible. And there was, you had to have so many hours. And we had the training stations at the time.
Yep.
And I don't know, they were in disrepair. It was a cost savings measure, bottom line.
Okay.
And not considered essential.
Do we think that it is a barrier to kids being able to go to driver's ed? First of all, it's really expensive as a parent who's put 3 kids through driver's ed.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be really on the ball to get into it at a certain time as well. It fills up really fast. Well, actually, I paid for 2. Clayton did his at West. I just don't know, like, now that if, when we look at the new school, is it something we can look at taking in-house again, or is that not a model that we want to pursue?
Does it raise her insurance rates by having that in-house?
I don't know.
Seems like
I can't imagine it wouldn't.
Cost you more in insurance. I mean, the liability is now on you versus outside.
I guess I just know a lot of kids who haven't done driver's ed now because it is hard to get into, and it's a lot harder to get out there too. To have the transportation to get from Waterloo out to Hawkeye can be difficult.
You can still just go take your driver's test yourself, all right? Without driver's ed.
Oh my God, there's no way in this face of the earth I would be able to pass the driver's ed test.
I mean, that's
You
what
have to be 18. You have to be 18, I think, to be able to go and
18
just
to do
take the
that.
test to bypass that. The other
And your
thing,
insurance, your car insurance is more than
the other thing is, a lot of the courses are online, so the accessibility, being able to go out to Hawkeye or not, is really, not because they're doing it online.
the ones private companies are.
Private, but also Hawkeye. I mean, I think this would be a good thing, another avenue for our kids. They're still going to go to outside private companies like Street Smarts. I'm a certified driver's ed teacher, so. Yeah. So, dealing with state laws and that kind of thing, I just think it's important that we're providing all avenues for our kids.
I agree.
You know, it's always going to be a fee. That $425, that's pretty standard. So when I look at this, I mean, you know, they're just trying to get a partnership with us, and that would guarantee their business a little bit. But there's so many kids out there, you know, I think all of the drivers there, they're going to have business because of the kids. Because you have some kids that are even 14 years old. So, yeah.
Just judging by the number of minor school permits that the superintendent signs, we have a lot of kiddos that are taking driver's ed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just my question that it, you know, if there is a barrier, and you still have to find somebody typically who can take your kid to do the driving part. It's just a lot. And I actually do know some kids who haven't been able to do it, kids who are now 19 and they still don't drive. But part of that might be they're kind of an anxiety, and they're an anxious generation. They just are. It's okay. So that was my only question.
Yeah.
All right. Any more questions on that? Comments? All those in favor of approving the superintendent's recommendation state aye. Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carried. That brings us to item 12. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve the request for proposal RFP for school bus bids as attached. And I know I don't see Zach, but we have JT here and is he? Oh, shoot.
So moved.
You've been quiet back there.
Second.
Zach is on his way up, and I know Lau has information as well. They can probably helping JT and Zach, so I'll turn it over to you guys.
Lyle, do you want to go first?
Just
no.
Give them the what they call them, the Cliff Notes.
Yeah.
So currently we are looking at the option of going in-house. So one of the big things we want to know is how much does a bus cost? So we've heard some numbers from suppliers, but we want to get it in quantities just to help us look if we want to really go down that route. Obviously, financially, we need to know if we're okay to do that. So we will be going out for bids on buses. Currently, the big one that we're looking at is potentially bringing some athletic buses in-house to help with our charter costs. So that was the base bid that we included. I had quite a few conversations with 3 of the suppliers. One of them's Bluebird that supplies buses, IC, and Thomas. So Bluebird offers all the options of diesel, gas, and propane. IC does not offer it in propane and gas at this time. That kind of went away during COVID times when they were having a hard time with their manufacturer on propane engines. So that kind of went away, but they are looking to bring that propane back at some point. And then Thomas just offers for diesel and gas only. So we're kind of limited a little bit on some options, but I included quite a bit of alternates. If we were to go in-house at some point, we at least have some kind of a base price to go off of for some buses that we would need. Currently, we would need about 50 buses if we wanted to go in-house.
Are we only looking at new?
No, we're not. I think it's obviously we wouldn't want to buy all new because 10 to 12 years is kind of the lifespan of a bus before you really start to have maintenance cost issues. So if we bought all new, then 10 to 12 years, we'd be back to buying 50 buses. So we're
Right.
looking to buy used as well to kind of space that out.
And that part's probably manageable, but yeah. New would be nice, but if we can afford it, but a mixture is probably better. I do have just a couple I have a whole 3 pages here, but I'm gonna spare you. I'm gonna spare you the handout, but just a couple of interesting statistics. You mentioned the charter bus. We spent $600,000 on charters. Well,
Yeah,
for
this
sports.
year's was
Excuse
just
me,
this
sports.
month's was 36,000 just for this month. I looked in just this month.
For sports travel, competition sports, not after school practice, take a nibble, none of that. Just competition sports. We will have spent if the schedule holds for June for softball and baseball. 600,000. Hawkeye by far was the highest, 421,000. We did 725 sports trips this year. And the Hawkeye trips averaged $1,355 each. The first student trips averaged $442 each. And we also had WinStar. They did mostly Life Labs. They averaged $1,532 per trip. So you can see the big difference there. Now, of the 725 trips, if we had one bus, and I did this by day by bus, if we had one bus, it would have been deployed 215 days. We only have 176 days of school, 172. But when you add the Saturdays, and there's quite a few of those, when you add June, a lot of travel in June for baseball and softball, 215. And then if you had 2 buses, it would be another 157 trips, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of diminishing returns. The sweet spot is 5 to 7 sports buses. Is where the economics say you should be. A little depends on who's driving the bus. Not a lot, because the pay is about the same. We did have 75 trips of the 414 that first student did that were driven by our coaches. So, and that was mostly at the end of the year. That's more and more common the way it looks. So if we had 5 buses, and I just put in 170,000, that's kind of some new, some not new probably. It's a 2.2 year payback for 5 buses. If we did 6 buses, it bumped that up to 2.5 year payback. 7 bus fleet, that would be the maximum we'd want to go to, is 2.9 years. So somewhere in that range. But the purpose of getting these new prices is to judge the used prices. If they're too close, then you might as well buy them. If there's a big gap, then you know how much that discount is for the other buses. So I think it's important to get a full accounting of what's before us, but it certainly looks like the economics are, well, it's about a $380,000 savings, net savings, after our cost of, for the fuel and the driver and the insurance and all that. So it's not insignificant. And remember, we've got, for this coming year, hopefully we'll have the $1 million savings from reducing routes. So this is another 380. Now, the caveat there is, of course, the contract says we're only allowed a 10% decrease. Otherwise, it's negotiable. So, as with any contract, what we actually do in savings, we're not going to get 100% of until the following year. If we're not under contract, then. So that's one of the things. But I thought it was interesting that 725. That's a lot. That's a lot of trips just for sports, just for competition sports, and so the suggestion might be, because some of these buses could also be used for Life Lab. I looked at some of that. The days that the students went to Life Lab in Dubuque, they could have ridden one of the 7 buses if we had 7 buses. On the other hand, the 18 buses in one day that went to the Des Moines Zoo, you can't handle that, but there might be a way to divide that up to fully utilize these buses. And then the other item, of course, is they can be used as spares if they're not being used on that day, or spares for home to school if they're not being used on that day for sports. But it's kind of a big deal. It's $600,000 is plenty of money, and to save that. So hopefully we'll save at least $1 million out of the $1.3 million this next year with reduced routes. And after that, if we go full in-house, there's really about another $1 million on the table. So the economics, after looking at all the details, certainly seem to be solid.
Can we help with specifying where the used buses come from? Particularly regionalized. I think if you're going to buy something used, buying it somewhere from further south where you don't have the salt exposure as you do here.
Yeah,
that might give us a little more life on the bus.
we got more options with used. One thing we do have to make sure is that they're up to Iowa specs. Every state's a little different on their buses of what the Department of Education requires.
Our salt uses up here, a 2-year-old could be a lot different versus buying one, say, from Arkansas or somewhere.
Minnesota, yep. Minnesota gets salt,
Yeah.
versus the South, absolutely.
Might have a little more heat wear, but you want rust.
The one thing I do find out on the buses that that are in Texas and whatnot, they don't have heat. They just have heat in the cab area. So that would be one thing that we would have to
Probably
consider.
some spot somewhere like a Missouri or somewhere doesn't like the other ones or something.
Don't kids have coats anymore?
If they do, they don't wear them. I don't know. Mine never did. So
When you sit 3 in a seat, it gets pretty warm.
And then lead time for new buses, it's about 4 to 6 months is what I've been told. It's gotten a lot better past year or so, I'd say. But one manufacturer told me a year for Type D, which is the flat nose.
So we're talking about looking at taking bids for buses to take over the sports, right?
we're pretty much doing that anyway right now. I mean, we're having to charter almost everything for sports.
Yes. No, I'm not against that.
I'm just saying that we're already pretty much doing all the sports.
I get that. Doing charter is a little too much.
Yeah.
So yes, we need to have some for that. I'm trying to understanding what phase, are we going in some phases here?
Yep.
Because it makes sense with athletics. And so are some of those buses going to be used for routes? School routes?
You mean the 5 or?
Huh?
So we're kind of looking at it in 2 phases kind of here. So this RFP covers both phases, but first phase would be to look at purchasing the athletic buses to cover the charters to take over the charters, basically.
Athletics activities. And
Yes. And then like the alternates that you see in here, those are if we looked at going in-house. So we can gauge that down the road if the costs come out to be what, we're expecting for new buses. So there's kind of two phases here.
There's
One's
1 year
athletic.
left on the contract. So we kind of need to get in position.
What was the contract before? How many years?
3.
3 years.
Three.
And then you can do an extension, but it's an extension of 3 years.
How many UEN schools have gone in-house?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. I know Dr. Smith had sent out a survey that showed how many have gone in-house.
Yeah, I don't know if it said of the 16. I think we heard back from. I think we were one of 3 that were that were outsourced. A couple of them had gone from outsourcing to in-house, but it'd been a little while.
It's been a while.
Here's kind of the high level of what we're trying to do. Is currently JT is checking with his sources to see how much money do we actually have access to, basically. And what Zach is doing is, okay, if we went full in-house, what's the total cost going to be? And I appreciate the work that Lyle and Zach put in on thinking through what the various bid options would be. Because I told them, let's try to wrap our heads around how much is this going to cost before decisions made, and then come back and say, okay, board, give us some direction here. We know it's going to cost this much money for phase 1 is the small amount for the athletic buses. Phase 2 is bringing it all in house, but at what cost to the district is going to be? And again, I want you all to be totally understanding. How much does that put our PEPL projects on hold? How much does that put us at risk in terms of the height? I want you all to be aware before the final decision's made.
So
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess the only reason I asked that, I'm thinking about execution. How the execution aspect. Has other districts out there, were they satisfied with their execution? Or, or some things, what are some of the possible little tweaks that needs to happen? I think that, we're checking out the money aspect. We're looking at, all the cost factor for the buses and everything. But I think there's also a side of research on the simple fact is who's actually doing this. Tell us the good, the bad, the ugly. Because we can't, I'm gonna tell you this, we just can't rush into, we got the money, so let's do it. It's gonna save this much money. Let's be a little bit more thorough on, and I'm not against it. I would just like it to be more thorough. Because we can also get blinded on the cost, on the savings, when it might show us down the road what are some things that we need to look for, so we do not do those things. Because I'm gonna tell you one thing that's in my head is. The fact that, this would be a large overhaul. The athletics aspect makes sense. See if we have the money. Let's go through what's what. It just makes sense because I'm not going to lie. Every time I see, all of these charters, I'm not going to lie. That's a little, I can understand, from a budget standpoint. So I think that's the step that we need to discuss and be aware of the full house aspect. Let's just take one step at a time and let's do some research. because there's other school districts I know that are out there. I know they're out there. But let's have that conversation. You know, JT, you guys have that conversation. Lau, I really appreciate this idea. I think it's good. But I think it's up to you guys now do some research on this. You know, we just can't just say yes and be a little bit blind to some things that might come back and bite us after 5 years from now or 10 years down the road. So I'm not putting any, my intention is not to put any negative vibes out there. My intention is to make sure that we're going in, and I understand with prices and gas and that kind of thing, you know, you got to move on some things. But let's just be real thorough about the simple fact that, okay, these buses for athletics, are they going to be used for, you know, doing some routes? Is it going to be open? I mean, there's a lot of unknowns that, for me, I would like to know. So I just want to put that out there.
It is a huge overhaul, John. I agree. I mean, we discussed that as smaller groups with JT. There's the HR standpoint of hiring 60 drivers, hiring the office staff. So we're all aware that, you know, we have to take a look at deeper dive in ourselves, but it's a big overhaul. It really is, along with everything else that's going on in the district. So,
I mean, I'd just like to know, hey, you know, District A, you know, District B, I mean, these guys, this is what they said, what to look for and that kind of thing. I just think that'd be a wise thing to do.
absolutely. We've had conversations with Marshalltown, Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, they are in-house right now, just to see, you know, what issues that they had. There's no district that is currently gone in that transition in the state of Iowa that I'm aware of, or that Sarah was aware of as well, and GT's nodding his head. So, you know, that's things that we have looked into.
All right. Thank you. Good, Lau? All right. And he'll give you a chance to answer. So all those in favor of approving the superintendent's recommendation, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carried. That ends our consent agenda items this evening. Now on to regular agenda, item 9, Success Link contract for coordination of services. It's the superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve the Success Link Coordination of Success Street Memorandum of Understanding for the 2025-2026 school year at a maximum cost of $100,000.
Second.
And as Sheena makes way up to the podium and can give us a little bit more details on this.
Sure. So ultimately, just to keep it brief, this contract went unchanged for this year. $100,000 was the same amount we were set to spend last year, but it, in essence, boils down to Success Link helps run our Success Street services. How's that for a tongue twister? So,
At least you only got one.
right. So yeah, not a ton of changes. Worked with Brad McCullough, who couldn't be here tonight, but asked him to keep our costs stable, and we were able to do that. So no changes from last year on this contract.
Any questions on Success Link or Success Street?
You feel like Success Street's being utilized well during the year?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's one of those things that sets Waterloo apart from other urban districts for sure. You know, to be able to provide our students services within the school buildings, within the school day, and a variety of services, right? Things that you couldn't imagine our kids needing, they get at Success Street for sure.
Yes. We, as a program, in my day job, utilize Success Street as well.
Okay.
For our program. So we're partnering with them this summer program as well. So We utilize them quite a bit throughout the school year. So they're wonderful. Any questions, comments? All right, all those in favor of approving the superintendent's recommendation, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carried. Thanks, Sheena. Don't go far, though.
I know, I'm just,
The next item on our agenda, the school nursing agreement 2025-2026, 2026-27 school years. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve the nursing contract agreement between Unity Point Health Corporation and Waterloo Community School District for the 2025-26 school year at a cost of $1,376,007.25, and the 2026-27 school year at a cost of $1,422,424.62.
So moved.
Second.
all right. So I have to give a shout out to Luke, who's been sitting here patiently representing UPH administration. But the long and short of it is, this is another cost savings to the district. So Luke and I have been back and forth in conversation around the contract and ways to cut additional funds. As you probably recall, last year we cut about $800,000 off of our contract with Unity Point Health. So this year, had we not made additional adjustments, we'd be paying $350K more than we're contracted to pay. And that number is, that number only happens if we actually use the services. So the cost not to exceed is the language that I want to use. So again, had we not come back to the drawing board, Luke and I, to have these conversations over the course of, I would say, 12 months, really just back and forth about how to be better stewards of the money even further after making that $800,000 cut, we'd be about $350 or $1,000 more going into next year than we are. So this is ultimately a $350K savings for the district. Cost not to exceed again.
Were we previously on a 2-year contract here?
No. So last year we did a 1-year contract to get things figured out. Since it was a substantial cut amount, we just wanted to work together to make sure that, the contract was going to work as is. We're moving back to a 2-year contract. So prior to last year, it was a 2-year contract.
Okay, so there's going to be 13 RNs at 0.8 FTE.
Yep.
Right? And then 9 school health assistants at 0.6 FTE. So which schools are going to have who in them and when?
Sure. So that is kind of a loaded question, Stacy. But the best way that I can describe it is, I asked the question of Unity Point to ensure that all of our buildings are always covered, start to finish on the school day. The things that play into that are student needs. So at any given point, let's say Cunningham could have a student that needs a feeding tube. Unity Point doesn't rely on a health assistant to help that student. So that's where an RN would go and service. So it really varies. I would say, generally speaking, Cunningham is one of our highest needs buildings. West High is another that I fully expect probably to have an RN more often than not. But it really is based on student needs. Kingsley, I give the example of Kingsley being able to fully get by with a health assistant just because their needs have been a little bit less than some of our other buildings. But again, the one thing that I was adamant about is all of our buildings have the coverage that they need, and our students will not see a lapse in service or support. And if they do, for whatever reason, we come back to the table and have that discussion.
Several years ago during the beginning of COVID, we'd used extra money and gone to the model of having an RN in every building. And were we just not needing to have that much coverage, or is this more of a matter of finance? Or
Honestly, I don't think we need RNs in each of our buildings, if I'm being completely honest. I say this with Luke present for a second. As far as I could see within the contract, it felt like we were maybe running, mini hospitals. And so I think this is more in line with our needs. And again, we are in constant dialogue, Unity Point in Waterloo schools to really evaluate the needs of our buildings. And they've done a fantastic job of tracking student needs, office visits, so on and so forth, to know specifically how their people are being used. But
Yeah.
I say the current set that we have is probably better fitting than COVID days. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Back to a 2-year contract.
But so this means there is somebody in every nurse's office every day. If somebody, or are there going to be times when there isn't anyone in the nurse's office?
Those times would be rare, right? The one issue that Unity Point would likely run into, as we do, is sub coverage, right? They have maternity leaves, and
Right.
their people are human; they get sick, and but the goal is to have coverage, consistent coverage in our buildings every single day, from the time students arrive to the time that they leave. And I'd say we've done a really good job of that over the course of the last 3 years since I've been in this role.
Do we have any of our people doing like meds then and stuff, or no? Do we not? I mean, are we making sure that that's not going on to office staff to do? Or
So we do have, each of our buildings have individuals that are med administers, or they administer meds. And that's solely for the purpose of like field trips, or in the case that, the nurse
right.
isn't available in an emergency scenario and the student needs their meds, we have somebody on staff that's able to provide it in a timely fashion.
that's not normally who's doing it?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
All right. Any more questions? So all those in favor of approving the superintendent's recommendation, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
That. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. That brings us to the next item on our agenda. Property management agreement. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve the property management agreement with Caliber Group Property Management Co. for school district property located at 266 Prospect Boulevard as presented.
So moved.
All right, we have Zach coming up to the microphone again and give us a little bit more information on this.
Yes, so back in 2009, we purchased some homes around the Kingsley Elementary area on Prospect, or off of Prospect, I should say. The 3 homes were purchased to look at potentially expanding Kingsley at some point. It's just always been kept up that we just maintain those properties. And the 266 Prospect is the one right next to Kingsley on the other side of the playground that has come up open. The tenants have left, so we're looking to fill that spot. But we're also looking for the help of a property management company to kind of help us with that. They would take.
Go unclog your toilet in the middle of the night?
No. Or answer a bunch of phone calls in the middle of the night.
Wait, what? So there's 2 other houses. Are those occupied?
There was, so those 2
those
houses
have been
that
torn
are,
down.
yep, those were on Sunset that were torn down.
Okay. So this is the only.
So this is the only one that stands. So the other 2 properties are just green space right now. But we're looking to have somebody help us take care of that, especially the kind of the fulfillment. So they'll do anything from signing a lease with them, showing the house to potential tenants. They'll deal with evictions that we hopefully never have to deal with, but after hours calls, any other issues that come up across. So Caliber Property Management was one that we looked into. They have managed over 700 properties for the Cedar Valley area. And 2, I should say, when they look at tenants, they look at their credit score, they look at their background history. Obviously, living next door to a school, we need to be cognizant of that. And the district also has input on who we want to be living in that house. Just to be mindful as well to the neighbors in the area. So Caliber, they do property management for 9% of the collected rent. So we're looking anywhere from $1,500 to $1,800 a month on this house. So $1,600 a month, we would get a little over $17,000 a year in rent, and then we would pay Caliber Group $1,700 for the year. So essentially it would be 19,000 and some odd change subtracted by 1,700, 17,000 some odd cents that we would pocket after any repairs, or before I should say, any repairs that might come up as well.
Do we
So
own
it's
any
a-
other houses anymore in the area, or is this like the last of like houses that people will live in that we have?
This is the last house. Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, it's the only house.
Yeah.
The rest are just green
We
spaces.
just put
Okay.
one down on Sunset last year,
Yep.
last school year, it came down.
Yep.
So
And this house still is in good shape. It's a
Yeah.
2-story home.
It's a nice house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's unusual for a district. You're kind of shrugging your head there.
What is the purpose of the house?
So what happened was, as I recall, was during No Child Left Behind, they had needed extra classroom space at Kingsley because it was not on the list at Lou Henry and Orange. So they had to set voluntary transfer students from other buildings there, and there wasn't enough space. So they bought additional, those houses there with the potential to add on modulars or add on to building to house the population coming to those locations. And then it became less an issue as all the buildings that, eventually phased on to the No Child Left Behind thing, to a point where there was no required voluntary transfer within the district. So I think that's how it
just
went.
makes sense to keep it though now in case we need the land at some point,
There's several reasons. First of all, Kingsley's the only 350 student school. Every other school is 450. It's not from scratch. It's not a buildable lot without these extra lots that we bought. So if a tornado came along and destroyed part of it, we could not rebuild on that site unless we have the proper amount of land. So it's just kind of protection of our options there. It's a school located in a kind of a strategic area. There was a knockdown, drag out battle over Kingsley a number of years ago. School board elections depended on that, or were influenced by that. The city wants it because lobbied fairly heavily to keep it, just because of it's kind of surrounded by houses that are old and getting dilapidated. And it kind of stemmed, in the city's view, stemmed the movement towards that area. And at the time, there weren't many students, so that was the purpose to close it when Lou Henry was built. But then in a short period of time, what do they call it, gentrification took place, and all those houses that, the older people had, they died or went to a nursing home and sold their house to a young couple. And the kid population just exploded. And our philosophy is to build houses or schools where the kids are. And that changed fairly dramatically over a few years. So it's a solid location. It's got a lot of kids that live in that area today. And like I say, if something dramatic were to happen to it, we could not rebuild on that site without this property.
All right, any more questions for Zach? So all those in favor of approving the superintendent's recommendation, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carried. Don't go far. Let me get this done. That brings us to item 12, sale or disposal of real property to Big Hand Pepper LLC. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve the offer from Big Hand Pepper LLC to purchase the Greenbrier and Castle Hill school sites for a total purchase price of $500,000.
So moved.
All right, you want to give us a brief?
Yep. So a while back ago, we purchased, or we put Castle Hill and Greenbrier land to the east for sale, in an attempt to, help with our budget, and also these weren't of any big value to us, especially the land on Greenbrier. We don't have to maintain to keep it, and then Castle Hill, the building itself. So I've had a lot of phone calls just in general about Castle Hill for it being for sale, and Greenbrier as well. Nobody really of interest enough to put in an offer, but we did have one person that came forward to put in an offer on Castle Hill and Greenbrier. We met as a facility group with that individual. It was Brent Dahlstrom. He's very well known in the Cedar Valley area. In fact, he just finished developing the old Edison site, which are single-family homes that run through there. He owns Panther Builders as well, so they do a lot of residential homes. Who did Edison as well, so he's very motivated and driven. We also worked with him and Noel Anderson from the city, because there are grants that Brent can apply for that'll help demolish the Castle Hill building in order to develop it. So Brent's would like to use both of these sites for new development of single family homes. Greenbrier, we've had discussions of, what that future would look like for the rest of the land potentially. So we've worked with the city to work it out to where it can continue on using the rest of that land at some point, and it would flow like the rest of the housing in that area. If we did the 2.5 acres that is for sale, they could get 12 lots in there to build for single family, which is about 0.14 acres. They're 60 by 100 lots. And then, like I said, there's potential for expansion there as well in the future. And then Castle Hill would be 15 lots that would be for sale. And that would connect Spiker and Maynard, kind of a through street right in the middle of Castle Hill, almost where it's at. And those lots would be anywhere from 0.33 to 0.5 acres as well. And then Brent would look to demolish Castle Hill in the spring after his grant application has been processed and run through, and then he would start developing them next year for the infrastructure and for the lots. He gave us a price of $500,000 for both, which as a facility group, we all felt that was a good price, especially with what we were given from a broker, kind of an estimated value for both lots. And also just knowing that, those could be students at some point that would be living in those lots, and kind of just growing the Waterloo area as well more. So it gives us hope to know, what the lots would be used for, and they're not going to sit there for 4 or 5 years, weeds growing, and Brent's motivated and he will get it done.
Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the superintendent's recommendation state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carried. Thanks, Zach. Appreciate your work. Oh, nope, don't go
Stay
far.
again.
Yep, don't go far. That brings us to item 13, agreement with Gov Deals Inc. for online sales of surplus property. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve the resolution authorizing the Waterloo School Waterloo Community School District to enter into agreement with Gov Deals Inc. to allow online sales of surplus property as presented.
So moved.
All right, can you give us a little bit of explanation on this as well?
Yep. So Gov Sales, they do a lot of, or Gov Deals, they do a lot of online auctioning for other districts. I believe other community colleges as well, for one-off items. Now we're not talking where you've got a building full of items and equipment, furniture that you're looking to auction off. That goes more to, you know, our Hill Pipers or box real estate auction or auctioning companies. These are more the one-offs if we're looking to sell a vehicle. If we've got some hand tools that we're looking to sell, we take a picture of these items, post information on it, and then we post it on the Gov Deals website. None of this stuff is shipped. They all have to come in and pick up the equipment themselves. There is a 12% fee that they give, so whatever the auction price is, that the bid closes at $22, there's a 12% fee on top of that for their portion of it. And that there is a reserve met that we can do, so if we don't want something to sell for a certain amount of price, it won't sell until that reserve has been met. JT, for example, they used Gov Deals at his previous deal or previous district, so it was good to get some insight from him and see how it worked. Now, this agreement doesn't mean that we're stuck with using this auction company forever. We still have to come to the board for individual items that we want to post up for auction. So this doesn't necessarily hold us to anything. It's just more so getting the board on board. JT, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I was just going to say that Gov Deals is very widely used, not only in Iowa, but across the nation. It has a wide reach of buyers. For example, when we sold used buses at my previous district, we would reach all the way and have folks drive up from Mexico to get our buses. So it has a wide reach. To Zach's point as well, this doesn't mean that we're just going to throw things on the auction without the board knowing. We are required to give you notice, to give the public notice that we are selling certain items, so that will come to the board and in the agenda somehow, where you will see, hey, the district is going to list these certain items on Gov Deals, and that's also a good marketing piece for us too, so the public knows. So yeah.
I think it's a really good idea. I don't know how you guys found it, if you brought it in, but it makes sense. It really does. When will be so when you were talking about this is not like what we would use for like Castle Hill.
Correct. We're currently working on, I've got one of our guys meeting with 3 auctioneer companies just to see which one will get the lowest fee percentage, and then we will bring that to the board for Castle Hill and at some point Expo as well.
Okay.
Meaning items inside the building, not the building itself.
Correct. Items inside the building, yes. And I have seen, I believe, one of the school districts for Gov Deals, they put their old playground up for auction, and it included the demolition piece. So, you know, they probably saved $20,000 in demolition fees or demolition costs. So just some interesting things to utilize it for.
All right, any more questions for Zach? All those in favor of approving the superintendent's recommendation, state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carried. Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thanks.
All your work on this. The next item on our agenda, item 14, is issuance of school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bond series 2025. This recommendation has to be broken down into 4 parts, and it requires a roll call vote for each. So the superintendent's recommendation are that the Board of Education approve the resolution entitled Resolution Appointing Trustee, approving the second supplemental indenture and authorizing the execution of same. We need a motion and a second for each.
So moved.
Second.
3. Thank Jesse and Janelle. Okay, so JT, can you give us a little bit of information? Yeah, just
Yep.
explain
Yep.
each
So-
one as we
so,
go,
yep.
briefly.
Yep, this first piece, so first of all, these 4 resolutions, these are the final formalities, resolutions that we have to do to complete the bond sale that we did a few weeks ago. So this first piece, UMB Bank is already our trustee for our other debt issuances. So this resolution just approves them as the trustee for this one, and then it amends previous agreement so that when it refers to the second supplemental indenture, it's basically an amendment to previous agreement. So that's what that is.
Okay. So and this requires a roll call vote. So on item 1, the resolution entitled Resolution Appointing Trustee, approving the second supplemental indenture and authorizing the execution of same. Director Mills. Director Knight.
Aye.
Director Schmidt.
Aye.
Director Ewing.
Aye.
Director Matlock.
Aye.
Director Cox.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carried. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve that the form of tax exemption certificate be placed on file and approved.
So moved.
Yeah, so briefly, these bonds are exempt from federal income tax, so I don't think there's actually a formal certificate, but there's a formal action that needs to take place that designates these as tax exempt.
Are they exempt from state?
In Iowa, they're not. They're just federal.
And this requires a roll call vote as well. Director Cox.
Aye.
Director Matlock.
Aye.
Director Ewing.
Aye.
Director Schmidt.
Aye.
Director Knight.
Aye.
Director Mills.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carried. On item 3, the superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve that the form of continuing disclosure certificate be placed on file and approved.
Second.
Yeah, so throughout the life of these bonds, we're required to apprise bondholders of certain financial information. For example, we have to submit annual audits and whatnot. And if there's any significant events that happen, we would have to disclose those. So this is the action that says that we will comply with those continuing disclosure requirements.
So we'll start to my left again. Director Mills.
Aye.
Director Knight.
Aye.
Director Schmidt.
Aye.
Director Ewing.
Aye.
Director Matlock.
Aye.
Director Cox.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carried. This brings us to our last one. The superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve the resolution entitled Resolution Authorizing and Providing for the Terms of Issuance and Securing the Payment of $87,220,000 School Infrastructure Sales, Services, and Used Tax Revenue Bonds, Series 2025 of the Waterloo Community School District, State of Iowa, under the provisions of Chapter 423F of the Code of Iowa and providing for a method of payment of said bonds.
Second.
Yeah, this is truly the dotting of the i's and the crossing of the t's. This is the final action that summarizes the terms of the issuance. And that's, I mean, we could read through it and go through all the details, but I think you've seen them or heard them, and it's been a process. So the journey's over after this action.
All right, this is it. So I'll start to my right. Director Cox.
Aye.
Director Matlock.
Aye.
Director Ewing.
Aye.
Director Schmidt.
Aye.
Director Knight.
Aye.
Director Mills.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carried. Thanks, JT, for giving those explanations as well. All right, I think you're up next. This brings us, oh, I'm clicking the wrong one. There you go. This brings us to our last item, action item on our agenda, and this is just for information only. It is the financial information. And our own JT Anderson, CFO, I'll turn it over to you now.
Yeah, again, these are the financial statements for April 30th. So we're a little behind just because of the spread out of the board meetings. But really, it's been business as usual for the month of April. I think I pointed this out the last time. When you're looking at the funds, the SAVE fund, we continue to run in a negative. Again, we've had to borrow from the general fund to help subsidize some of the one high school design fees. So again, by the end of the year, that will, once we get our bond proceeds, we'll reimburse the SAVE fund for that. So we'll see that go back into the black. The other big thing to notice on the second financial statement in regards to cash and investment balances, we had our cash balance is a lot healthier this month because we had our influx of property tax receipts in April. So that's about $14 million that we got in one basically payment in April. So that's the reason for the increase in cash for the month of April. Other than that, I'll take any questions. And if you ever have questions offline or whatever, just feel free to email me and I'm happy to answer those.
So where is the 24 million invested at the moment?
For our debt service?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we were talking about UMB Bank as our trustee, they are holding those funds for us right now, just in regular treasury with different terms of treasury. So there's $24 million right now with UMB Bank that we're required to set aside again for our future debt obligations.
And that's is it interest rate off the top of your head?
Right now the normal interest is about 4.1.
But that will continue the minute you get to 87 million. What, 6 million?
Yeah, right off the top, 6 to 7 million will go to a reserve. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, goes into this investment fund, so it's going to stay.
It will, but actually, you'll see in July the investment will actually go down because our construction, our $16.8 million construction bond principal will be paid off at that time.
Okay.
Yep.
And that stays in there until the end of the project, right?
Correct. Yep.
Or no, to the end of the bond.
To the end of the bond. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Anybody else have any more questions? Thank you again, JT, for these monthly financial reports. We sure appreciate it. All right, and like you said, if you have any questions during the month or before we receive these, or if you don't understand something, just reach out, email. He'll be happy to answer any questions for you. So, and that was just for information only. All right, so that ends our action items for the evening, and now on to the superintendent's report.
Today was the first day of June retreat for building leadership and district leadership. Thanks to Jonathan and Crystal for stopping out for the morning. I think, Jonathan, you were there for most of the day. All day. It was a great day of sharing some exciting data and starting the school improvement work for next year. So day 2 is tomorrow. If you want to stop on over and see what's going on, you're more than welcome to join us. The other bit of exciting news is that we have finalized a date for the groundbreaking ceremony. It is Thursday, June 10th.
July 10th?
July 10th. That'd be tomorrow. It is tomorrow. It is tomorrow. Thursday, July 10th, 5 p.m. Emily's going to be sending out information tomorrow. We tried our best to find a date. It was hard to narrow down when we get the mayor there, some facilities committee people, high school principals. So I hope that works for your schedule. I know the summer can be difficult with trips and all that stuff, but super excited for that event on July 10th. So That's it for me for tonight. Yeah.
We appreciate that, I think. All right. Thank you, Superintendent Smith. This evening for board comments, we'll start with Director Matlock.
Thank you. Just want to go back. I really enjoyed myself at the Expo graduation. That was my first time going. Director Williams had told me how exciting it was, and it was very exciting. I don't know how they're going to top that if that was the last time in that building. But it was awesome, and it was great to see the young people and their families be so excited, to see their young people walk that stage. So I really enjoyed that. Congratulations to the district on the scores. It was exciting to be invited this morning to the June retreat to hear all the excitement that was going on. There was a very positive vibe in that room, and I really appreciated starting on Monday off, kind of on that note with hearing what's going on with our district. Really exciting. And I really appreciated, I was kind of, we were told to listen, just to, and I was like, okay, I'm going to follow instructions. I'm going to listen. So I wasn't for sure, to contribute, but I really appreciated breaking up in the groups. And when we, numbered off 1 through 25 and sat in our different groups and had conversation with, honestly, people I have never met before, sitting in this seat. So I really appreciated being vulnerable with that group to talk about, the positive things, talk about the challenges, kind of your leadership practices. How has that changed you as a leader? And what leaders have you learned from as you go through this process? So it was really interesting. I was nervous about it sitting there as a board member because I'm like, oh gosh, and the budget cuts did come up, but it was a very honest conversation. And it was good. I really appreciated that moment. And congratulations to all the spring athletic teams and their academic accomplishments. And don't forget about the summer reading programs. There are several out there with freebies, Panda Express, Chuck E. Cheese, Barnes & Noble, Pizza Hut. They have all these reading programs for our kiddos where they can get free pizzas and Panda Express and all these different things. So take a look at those things and pick a book up, read a book, put the devices down. And so our kids can come back in the fall ready to go, ready to hit the ground running. All of us. I'm going to even read a little bit more myself too. So I think let's just make this summer a great one and keep it safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Matlock. Director Ewing.
So I have nothing further. That was a great recap.
Thank you, Director Ewing. Director Cox.
Well, ditto with Director Matlock. I had a great time out at the retreat. Just kind of mentioning about there to be observing, however. It was very inviting. It was very I thought it was a great opportunity for teachers and administrators to kind of see it from a board perspective, and I was able to see it from administrator perspective, and I thought that was positive. It was just good to hear some of the challenges and some of the things that think they're doing well. Some of the people that are leaders that there was one question about is it someone who from a leadership mentor or help you that and that was good to hear that we have some mentors out there without knowing that they're mentors. And so that was definitely great news. Good questions. The dashboard. If you haven't got on it yet, please do. I think it's well organized. It speaks plain. So I really enjoyed the fact that just kind of being able to tinker around with that and seeing some of our student scores and that kind of thing. And one perspective about that is, I think looking at the scores and that kind of thing is a good foundation. And so the next question is, how do we build on that? we really need to look at how we can build and not take the perspective of we should do this or we should do that. Personally, like I said, compared to the other UEN schools, districts, we're doing pretty good. So our next challenge is, how can we do better? And I think that was a tone at the retreat, and I think that was a great thing. And I'm glad I had the opportunity to go to it. I stayed for the full thing because of, and and it was kind of good just to see the process. I've always heard about the process, but it was actually kind of, I sat there with central administration. Kudos to the principal there. My mind escaped me. No, drinking. I do. Yes. Want to make sure I pronounce it right. Her saying, yes, it's okay to sit down there. Man, it was just good. It was just good information. I'm a little bit more in depth of what's what. Yeah, and other than that, with the, seemed like the spring sport wise been great for our district. Kudos to the teachers out there. You deserve a summer off. But I don't look at it as a summer off for teachers, because I think this is time for them to fuel back, because going through the school year is tough. It's tough. So I just want to just say that, sometimes I think that there's a perception out there that we as board members, just want more out of teachers. Hey, they're doing it. Great vibe at the retreat. Oh, the reading wise, can I read and get pieces? Okay, I'm done.
All right. Thank you, Director Cox. Director Mills.
I want to say congratulations to our new associate superintendent and our director of human resources. Really excited. You guys have both already done so much in the under the titles you were already under. I'm really excited. I think this is going to be, well, it is the best fit. So I'm excited. I hated the conversation that we had, and I really feel icky, but you guys both have so much grace, and it's just one more way that you prove who you are as human beings. So one more thing, Crystal did a good job of hitting most of the points, but go online and look under Waterloo Schools and look at the jobs. Like, everybody out there, check it out. There's openings. If you're looking, look. We have openings and we need good people. So check out the job openings.
Thank you, Director Mills. Director Knight.
So interesting. I've listened to some comments here, and one of the things, in the past we talked about is summer slip. When you talk about it, providing reading, different summer school options. Talk about, trying to make sure our kids don't fall behind. But sometimes maybe thinking about that and how we flip that script, and instead of thinking about summer slip, like summer gain. What can you do to make gains over summer? You got 8 weeks, and it could be a variety of things. Where it's reading a book, where it's taking a class, getting a job and learning a skill, or just whatever. But there's opportunity, to get ahead in the year to come, if you think of it in that way. Not a way of just not falling behind, but how you get ahead. So I mean, think about to our parents and our kids. It's like to each of us. We have roughly 8 weeks. What can we do to make ourselves better for the next year? So that would be my challenge to our community out there. What can we do to make ourselves better? So.
Yeah. Thank you, Director Knight. Director Schmidt.
Just congratulations to all the coaches and athletes, especially the coaches. You know, they're so influential in so many people's lives, and often you had to ask an adult, who do you remember from your school years? And it's quite often a coach. You know, they're with the kid more intimately through thick and thin, tough times. And we're just fortunate to have some really good coaches. And I just hope they stay doing what they're doing, because they do affect kids' lives. So thank you coaches. That's all I got.
I wasn't prepared for you to be done that
Well,
fast.
I was going to talk about Expo, but two people already took that.
Thank you, Director Schmidt. I just have a couple of things. First, this is a response, and then talking a little bit about since we, finally crossed our T's and dotted our I's with the One High School project, and with the issuance of the school infrastructure sales services and use tax revenue bonds in November of 23, we were informed that the superintendent was going to bring forth a recommendation that we move forward with exploring the idea and the option of going to One High School. And immediately, well, not immediately, because it had to sink in a little bit for me. But even in my initial votes, if you go back and look at the board minutes, I always said it was intriguing. So I wanted to know more. I wanted to see what that would look like, one, but then what the rest of the community thought and felt. Because I can only have an opinion for myself and have the concerns that I had. And so in December of 2023, we voted to allow Envision to explore. Now, we didn't put a price tag on it, right or wrong. We didn't put a total price tag on it, but we did, as a board, agree, and I believe it went 7-0 to explore to see what that looked like. So I wanted to clarify that. We did make that step. And in the process since then, there's been a lot of up and downs. I think for me, the biggest part was that the community had a say-so with the petition. I was extremely happy that the people that worked to put the petition in place, they allowed their voices to be heard. They took the steps that were necessary to do it. And what I said at that time and before that time, we needed buy-in. We needed to get people voices heard. We needed to see where our community was, if we were ready for this. So I appreciate the groups that got together and lit a fire under the board to look at these things. And it eventually went to a vote, and it passed. And now here we are. It's hard not to look back at what it used to be or what it is currently. But I think it's important to look forward. I think we owe it to our students who really made their voices heard, and this is what they want. I think we owe it to our community to build, to grow. This is a place that even before I lived here, and I used to come here for the summers, I've always been in love with Waterloo, Iowa. It was a little different than my early schooling, but it's always been comfortable. It's always been family oriented. I grew up in a place early on where I wasn't really supposed to go, where it was rough. I couldn't, in Waterloo, we used to sleep with our doors open at night. And I think this is an opportunity for our community to unify, for us to be one. And it's been a long time coming. I sincerely hope that politics plays as little into this as possible. I hope that all sides are heard. I hope the right people are in place to make this go forward. It's going to take a effort from everyone. How I said about the cell phones, and I think from the youngest of the young to the oldest of the old, every walk of life from Audubon Park to North Crossing, everybody needs to be on the same page. And a lot of times we have to take ourselves and our feelings out of it, and allow it to grow. Give it the opportunity to be successful. I'm glad Miss Looney spoke and reminded me of something. And she said, legends are born in Waterloo. And I can't unsee it. And this is legendary. We're in a time where we can, continue that legacy of legends, and pour into our students, and give them, what they deserve, in hopes that and I put it down and I'll say it. Initially, I was going to address it to the senior class that just graduated. One, congratulations to those families and those students that just graduated. But I'm about being productive. So, one, to the senior class that just graduated of 2025, no matter what you do, Sharice talked about if it's a 4-year college, a 2-year college, a trade school, a cosmetology school, if you're going into the workforce, be productive. Just be productive. Be productive in a positive way, because our community needs it. We need some success stories, as I used to say. We don't have we have a lot of success stories, but we can sure have a whole lot more. So with that being said, I don't think I have anything else. Congratulations to the spring sports teams. I know we have some summer teams still going and going at it. So good luck to them for the rest of the season. Let me get my dates. Pretty boy good. I need boring right now. Just a reminder that all offices and buildings are closed on July 4th for Independence Day. The next time we'll be in this room is on July 14th for the only board meeting in July. Yeah, I know, but I caught it. So is there anything else from anyone? Seeing none, can I get a motion to close?
Second.
All those in favor, state aye. Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carried. We're adjourned.